crowd. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So keep it good, right?
Keep it real,
PG.
man. Keep it real and keep it PG. We're going live on YouTube right now, guys. Hey, everybody on YouTube. Guess what? We're here for another radio show on YouTube as well. I'm the guy, Dave Scott, hanging out. My hat is crooked. That's going to drive me nuts. But we got two of the best in the paranormal field tonight for you because we love doing this. And David Weatherly and Ross Allison teaming up once again for another massive, massive book. And we're going to get to them here in just a few minutes as we are just a few minutes away from starting tonight's show. All right, let's give a shout out to everybody in our chat room so far. Ghost66, good to see you. Mary Jane, you're looking lovely tonight. Jurassic Joey, you're looking ancient. And I mean that in a good way, the Jurassic way. Hazel, welcome to our chat room. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm not sure if this is your first time or not, but I don't recognize your name, but we welcome you nonetheless with open arms. Betty Spaghetti, you're looking very spaghetti-licious tonight. All right, where else are we? We got Brett Lewis, everyone. You know we can't start the show without Brett Lewis in the chat room. Little Deborah, good to see you here. The Farmer's Robert, always a pleasure. Vintage Beard, good to have you here, my friend. New York Anthony, always a pleasure. King Zoner, welcome to Spaced Out Radio's chat room. I hope you enjoy yourself. Hillary, always a pleasure. The lovely and talented Becky Bowling is here, everyone. And you know, we can't do a show without our main man, Cable Guy Matt. You know, you could get your free piece of coaxial cable autographed by Cable Guy Matt. You cannot buy these in stores. Limit one per household. So make sure you hit Cable Guy up, Matt, or Cable Guy Matt up right now. Gary the Spudger, good to see you. Ad Gnome, always a pleasure. Rich Hilke, always thank you for coming on in. Teresa, you're looking stunning tonight. Dirty Filth, you're looking dirty tonight. Ross, always a pleasure. Worsley, thanks for coming in. Fap and Grandma Rose. Violet B from Australia. How's tomorrow looking? Please give us an update from the future. D Monkey, Chris Jarvis, Waylon, always a pleasure. Thank you. How you doing, guys? You guys having a good time over there waiting for me to shut the hell up here or what?
I'm good.
What's that? I dozed off for a second there. Sorry.
Yeah, Dave's about to throw a shoe at me right through the phone system here. Yeah,
we could give you another couple hours if you have more people to read off.
I could. I honestly could. There's Nate Rudd. There's the lovely and talented Andy Svensson, Chocobo. Oh yeah. No, you know what?
I gotta open my mouth.
I'm telling you, man.
Hey, just pitch the book at the end of it, and we're fine.
And we're going to pitch the book through the whole thing. You guys are my favorites. You know that. You know, I bow to being your...
Well, you're pretty awesome, too.
Oh, no, stop that. Stop that. I'm not even allowed to make eye contact with you guys.
You got to bring us back up to British Columbia.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, Merle and I are going to be having I think Merle is coming up here. Mike Morin is coming up here very soon, and we're going to have do a little bit of brainstorming on a couple of ideas that we have. We had hoped to start it this year, but due to the circumstances, we haven't been able to do that. But we're looking, and of course, anything we do will include the likes of you guys. You know that.
Well, definitely. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not even allowed to cross your border right now.
I know. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this to be over.
I blame David for that because it was his illegal stuff doing that caused that, not COVID.
Yeah. Always.
No, it's pretty disappointing. It really is. This is a crazy times when.
Oh yeah, man. As soon as it gets over, it's going to be funny because Dave's going to be making a run for the Canadian border to get the hell out of Dodge once it's free, and I'm making a run for Vegas. Because I need to get away. We'll just pass each other at the Bellingham airport, Dave. That'll be easy enough. And Ross, we'll just wave as we're flying over.
Probably. That's the way it always is. I'm always last to know.
I know. Me too, man. At least you may be the last to know, but at least you're invited. I just sit there and invite myself, man. That's how comes down for me. Hey guys, I heard you're doing something here. You mind if old Davey comes over and plays? No, yeah, I know.
Hey, it's always those who crash the party always bring the best favors, right?
Exactly. All right, guys, we got 30 seconds here. And Shanna, Dutch, good to have you guys here. Chris Jarvis, thanks for coming on in. I'm going to be on my best behavior tonight because I've got two rock stars here tonight. Rock stars, which is always a pleasure. Always a pleasure when you guys come on, man. All right, I guess I should probably send out this final tweet like that. And we're off and running in 5 seconds here. Hey, Conflict. Hey, I did an interview with Conflict Radio earlier tonight. It is posted on his YouTube channel, so make sure you check it on out. Old Davey, fresh material. Ask questions that I've never been asked before. Conflict Radio on YouTube. Make sure you check it on out. Hi, Steph. You're looking beautiful tonight. Here we go, everyone. Let's have a good time. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. On Twitter, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, and on my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. David Weatherly and Ross Allison are known as two of the most prolific researchers in the paranormal. Now, what I personally enjoy about them is not only are they friends, and I'm proud to be able to call them that, is that they also take a look into the paranormal and ghost stories, trying to bring it to a new level, researching, investigating, and looking for stories that are currently unheard of to most of us, if not all of the paranormal world. This leads us to their haunted series of books. Their latest, Haunted Churches, can be found at eerielights.com as well as Amazon. For as long as humans have practiced religious traditions, they have constructed buildings to gather, pray, and practice their faith. Sometimes, though, it's not just the living who linger in the sacred halls. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. David Weatherly and Ross Allison, always a pleasure to have both of you on the show at the same time, guys. David, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to be on.
And Ross, always a pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. I'm excited to be on the show.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you. And, you know, we're going to do a little bit of bragging here for a little bit, because I honestly think that of all the paranormal investigators out there, I would rank you guys in at least the top 3. I really would. And I mean that because I talk to a lot of paranormal people around and cryptid people, and just the way you guys do things, you never cross things off your list, which so many people tend to do in investigations. Ross, I want to start with you on this one, because you're someone who is very focused on learning what the paranormal is, what's it all about, what is causing all of this. For people who may not be familiar with your work, why have you chosen to be so open-minded about this subject, whereas so many people try to break down what they know and really push their own agenda rather than letting the evidence speak for itself?
Well, I think right now what's really changed the field, I should say, in paranormal is the media. Ghost hunting is huge right now. There's tons of television shows, and I think that's what drives a lot of people to this field, is because they're in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it for the media attention. And I think for me, you know, I've been doing this before you even had the idea that you could have a television show. So I've always had that open, honest approach since the very beginning, and I've always maintained that. I think for a lot of other people, and I hate to say it, it is the hype of, telling a good, fake ghost story just to get people scared and get your name in hopefully a television show or in any type of form of media. So I think that's the biggest problem we're facing right now. It's just people are in it for the wrong reasons.
But for you personally, you have been someone who has teamed up with people like David, and I think probably some of the top researchers in the world. I think David Spinks is one hell of a researcher as well, and you guys have your little conglomerate there. You guys, though, always seem to be very open-minded, letting the evidence speak for itself rather than opinion. Why is it so important that you guys have fallen into that category where, it seems so simple, yet so few actually do that and listen to the evidence?
Well, a lot of it is people aren't really trained in the paranormal. You get a lot of people that are learning this from watching the television shows. And as I said earlier, they don't understand what they're really doing on these shows. So I've always approached the field, as I said, being very open and honest with the research. I've been known to even have to debunk things because as we research a lot of this stuff, you find that some of these stories are pretty bogus. That's one of the reasons why me and David write these books is we want the honest truth out there. And unfortunately, with all these, numerous groups going in investigating certain locations, they tend to throw more stories into the buckets. And a lot of these stories aren't legit. Those claim, we had a psychic come in, and you don't even know if the psychic is credible or not. But their stories that input that they put out there starts to get published. And I think one of the things that we really need to do in this field is, as I've always said, go with what you know and not with what you think you know. And when you're dealing with the paranormal world, it is very diverse. It's just as diverse as religion. And so you've got a lot of people that have very different beliefs when it comes to the paranormal. And if you are trying to be scientific in your research, you cannot be biased by your own personal beliefs. And so for me, it's always, yes, try to collect the data to support the fact that there is something here. And I think that's what me and David continue to do and try to get that information out to the public.
One of the other things, David, that I really appreciate about you guys is you are looking for the stories that are beyond, the stories that have never been told before. We always hear, and I'm going to bring up a couple of classic examples, about what goes on at places like Waverly Hills or the Allegheny Insane Asylum or Gettysburg or places along those lines. Yet you and Ross always seem to come up with these topics and these ideas for your great books that are a little askew and stories that people will never have heard of before. Why take that angle instead of going to the popularity route that everybody has a connection with?
Well, there's a number of reasons for that. And before I go into that, I want to congratulate Ross because it's got to be a record that we're only, 3 minutes into the show, and he opened the can of worms that is paranormal television. That's got to be
new record. New record, yes.
But, so there's a number of reasons we take that route. And, on the one side, Ross and I, we do cover the well-known haunts. The previous book was on haunted ships and lighthouses. And, we covered the Queen Mary. We covered some of the really well-known places. And I'm no doubt between the two of us, Ross and I have been to all of those, on the typical bucket list. But the problem is that they are constantly examined. They're constantly looked at. There's been thousands of people probably that investigated the Queen Mary and Waverly Hills and these various places. And the stories get repeated over and over again. You have to really wade back to through a lot of material to find the source of, okay, what are the real facts here? Like Ross was saying a few minutes ago, you get to the core of this and try to peel back all those layers that have resulted from countless investigations, and you sometimes get a very different perspective. And we enjoy doing that too, but at the same time, it's fascinating, I think, for both of us to examine some of these lesser known haunts, because having done this for so many years, I can pretty much roll into any small town in the country and find the ghost stories. And often they're so fascinating. A lot of those stories are much better than the well-known haunted locations, because it has a really crazy story, or it's intense, or it's very emotional, or whatever. And doing this haunted series, one of the things we set out to do from the beginning is, we want to share the well-known stories and hopefully get to the root of those, but we also want to examine things that a lot of people don't typically think about or look at. We did haunted toys. This new one, haunted churches, a lot of people don't think about, churches are haunted.
No kidding.
A lot of them are. And, when you start digging into those stories, you find, we had a pretty big list from the start, and, we kind of narrowed it down to the ones we wanted to focus on, but we still cover a lot of different places in the book, and there's some really cool stories, and many of these people haven't heard unless they're local to the area, or unless by some chance they know about the haunting. There are a couple of famous ones in the book, but for the most part, I think a lot of people just aren't familiar with these stories, and there's a really powerful component to the ghost story itself that's associated with many locations. It's a tradition. It's a valuable part of folklore, and we've talked many times about wanting to really save these stories, because in the age of the internet, a lot of these things are getting lost, I think. There aren't as many people writing them down, and sometimes you get poor interpretations or really poor versions that are thrown up online. And we've really set out to try to get as many of the facts as we could about the ghost stories, and put them down on paper so that future generations have them.
Right. And if I can add a couple of things too, is one of the benefits that me and David have had is the fact that we do both travel a lot. And so we get to go to some of these, amazing small towns. And like David said, you get to hear these amazing stories and learn about places that people didn't know about. So, that's another way that we are able to collect a lot of stories that people didn't hear.
And that brings up a good point, because you guys love going to these little locations. You love going off the beaten path and really traveling into some areas of the unknown. And I'm going to tell you, I think that's rubbed off very well on a good friend of the show, Merle, Mike Morin. And the way Merle is now getting out there and exploring a lot of these hidden and smaller communities. The one thing that, and I heard his excitement after he just did a trip a couple weeks ago. And the one thing that I learned from him on this, and maybe you guys will concur and have stories along with it, you go to a lot of these small towns that are off the beaten path. They are more than willing to share their town's folklore and legends and hauntings with you. It's like all of a sudden, oh my God, the big city people are here to talk about our ghosts, David.
It kind of is like that. It's interesting for me because I grew up in a rural community, and, of course, in the 70s, you and I have talked about this before, Dave, in the 70s, this stuff wasn't hip. It wasn't part of pop culture, and you had to make some really different types of efforts to find the information and get people to talk to you and everything now. But, or then rather, but now it's very different because people are much more open, and, you still get some people that are reluctant, but overall, I think there's a different general attitude about the topics. And, we do find that going into some of these communities, once people find out, why you're there or what you're looking into, then sometimes you get the greatest just random accounts. Someone will come up to you and say, hey, are you those guys? Like, yeah. We had one. Ross and I were in a small town in Washington, and
North
we were doing it. we were doing an investigation, and a great haunted location, but we were sitting in the bar at one point, and this local guy just started talking to us, and he said, well, I don't know anything about any ghosts, but I got a Bigfoot story. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, and so, you know, he rattles off this really great account of a Sasquatch up in that region, and those are the kind of things, you know, that you just, that guy's never going to post that on the internet. You know, it's never going to be on Facebook or you know, a website or something like that, because these communities, you know, these people, a lot of these stories, they keep them to themselves. They are just local tales, local legends, and like I said, those are incredible to dig into.
Well, you know, it's funny because I was talking to one of my local mechanics here in town the other day, and he was telling me stories about how when he used to work just about an hour's drive away, you know, in the logging industry, and here he is at a big tree skidder, you know, this big machine that sits up high, and he's watching as the sun comes up over the horizon, and he's watching these trees being pushed down one at a time, and he's like, wait a second, there's no logging crew over there. What is causing that? And he couldn't figure it out. He went and told his boss, and his boss was like, don't worry about it. We got a job to do here. Let's get it done, and let's get out. I mean, those are the stories you just yearn for, because you're like, where's that area? Take me to that area right now.
Yeah, right.
You know? And Ross, yeah. I'm curious your opinion on that.
Well, I agree. You know, just like, you know, David said, it's all about being at the right place at the right time when it comes to this. As they said, you know, you get these people that don't get the opportunity to share a lot of these stories, or they're afraid to share their stories, you know, with their friends and family, because, you know, they'll think they're crazy. And then when the ghost hunters or paranormal investigators come into town, it's like, oh my God, you know, I got somebody I get to share the story with. So yeah, it's a lot,
and it's funny too, because, you know, sometimes sometimes there's a certain reluctance to share it within their own community at times, depending on, you know, whether anyone else has opened up about the topic. So, you know, some of these small little towns, they all know that they don't want to talk about it even amongst themselves, and there are various reasons for that. But given the opportunity or the opening, then they will. And, you know, then the floodgates open sometimes. But then you have other situations where there are times when, for instance, it's a profession that keeps people from talking. I can tell you, I've had a lot of incredible conversations with law enforcement officers who have opened up and told me about things once they find out what I do, because, you know, a lot of them are reluctant to talk amongst themselves. You know, they're not going to tell, you know, their partner or the other officers that they saw a ghost or this happened or whatever. And, you know, they keep those stories very often, you know, just to themselves, unless they suddenly have an opportunity to talk about it. I had a conversation. This was kind of funny. I was actually driving to a conference. This was a few years ago, and I was driving. It was the middle of the night. It was probably like 3 a.m, and nobody else on the highway. And I got pulled by a state trooper. And, you know, I'm pulling off and thinking I wasn't speeding. I wasn't doing this. So, you know, I pulled off to the side. He comes up to the passenger window of the vehicle. And he just, you know, he asked me a couple of questions. He said, you know, where are you headed or whatever. And he was merely just, I think he just wanted something to do. He was just making a random check, you know, and he during the conversation said, well, you know, be careful, you know, there's drug runners that run these roads or whatever. But when he found out I was going to this conference, you know, he started questioning me. He said, what kind of conference is it, you know? And I said, well, it's a paranormal conference. And he said, oh, okay. And then he started asking me a couple of questions, and he took this really long pause. And I said, I bet as a police officer, you've seen a lot of really unusual things. And there's another pause, and he said, yeah. And another pause, and then he says, can I tell you about something? I was like, oh yeah. Man, I think I sat there on the side of the road for like an hour talking to this cop. And I mean, he just had some fantastic stories. And he had been in New Orleans right after Katrina, and talked about, seeing what he called things in these houses that essentially he was describing shadow people. But I mean, he and his partner both witnessed these things, and he didn't use the word that he was terrified, but he basically, they got the heck out of there. So, you look at some of these people that are in professions where they're apt to be in locations where traumatic things have happened, and a high degree of potential for them to witness strange things. They definitely have stories.
That brings up a couple of instances up here. I mean, and for people who don't know, Ross and David came up to my community back in 2018. I think you fell in love with the area while you're here, because you keep asking when you're coming back, And
it's beautiful.
I know.
I was talking to an RCMP officer here recently, and he told me that a couple times a month they are getting called out to some sort of paranormal call. Couple times a month in our community.
Wow.
People who are having weird things happen. He never talked Bigfoot or UFOs.
But different locations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then a few months ago, we were building a rock garden in the front of our house. So we were out driving on the old logging roads, trying to find a nice rocky area to find some really cool rocks. And I get pulled over by this conservation officer, and he comes to the door. He goes, "Any guns, fishing gear, or sharks on board?" And because he looked inside the cab, and my little guy had a toy shark in there, and I'm like, "No, none of that. No fishing license, and don't have a gun license." He's like, so where are you guys going? I said, "Oh, we're just going to go collect some rocks for our rock garden." He's like, "Right on." And he goes, so I said to him, I said, "So, see any Sasquatch lately?" "Oh, yeah, I've seen lots," trying to make fun of it. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm serious. Have you?" And he goes, "Well, Dave, that pregnant pause that they give." And I said, I got a gifting. I said, I have a Sasquatch gifting site from where we found footprints a couple of years ago out on the 900 road. He goes, "Where on the 900 road?" I said, "Well, that's for me to know and you not to find out, right? I don't need you taking it down." And he laughs. So every time I see him in town now, I'm like, "Hey, any Sasquatch?" And he's like, no, not yet. Don't bug me. But they know. Oh, they know.
Yeah.
Just drives me nuts. I just want them to say, point me in a direction. Point me in a direction. That's all I want. Even if you just go that way. Fine, I'll go that way. I don't know what else to do, man. Don't know what else to do. But could you imagine if law enforcement, as we got about a minute left, David, could you imagine if law enforcement felt more comfortable, or even EMTs felt more comfortable in telling these stories? Man, the stories we would get.
Well, it's slowly happening. I know I've spoken to some other colleagues who have gotten stories out of law enforcement officers. Retired law enforcement personnel are often more willing to, start talking about it, because suddenly they're not going to be razzed at the precinct, if they start talking now. So I think over time, has these topics become more and more discussed and more part of, the public, so to speak, that you'll see more and more of those things come up.
Right on. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because it is that time for us to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Two of the best in North America, if not the world, joining us on Spaced Out Radio tonight when it comes to paranormal investigation. Mr. David Weatherly, Mr. Ross Allison. And I'll tell you, if you ever get a chance to meet both of these guys, make sure you get their autographs, because they will have all the time in the world for you as well. They are fantastic. And Ross is always wearing a skull somewhere. We'll find out where that skull is next on Spaced Out Radio, coming up in the second half hour. All right, Ross, my YouTube audience has to play a little game here right off the bat with our guests that are new. And since you're kind of new to the whole YouTube thing, David's already played this game previous. But the audience wants to know, point blank, what's your opinion of eating breakfast meals for dinner?
I'm all for it. I've been known to throw a nice sausage patty in between some waffles for dinner. So yeah.
I know you're for it too, aren't you, David?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys. I found the flaw.
I told you before, you can't go wrong with a stack of pancakes, whenever it is.
I know.
There you go. Yeah. Sometimes pancakes are good just for dessert.
That's right, yeah.
I had a caramel sundae today for dessert. Not going to lie. And the second question, Ross, when it comes to Devil's Tower in Wyoming, are you on Team Stump or Team Rock?
I'd have to say probably Team Rock.
Yeah.
You guys are bad. Fap in my chat room right now types in Dave is going to be pissed. Oh yeah.
I didn't coach him.
That's okay.
I didn't know about this game. I'm like, okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, we hit up every guest for it, man. Every guest. I think Ronald Murphy and one other are the only ones who have actually come back and agreed with me that breakfast food is for breakfast. Everybody in my chat room just rips me a new one for being an idiot about it.
Wow.
Yeah, they're vicious.
Why are you so limited?
I'm not limited. I just have places for things. I like order. Hey, Barther.
I think there should be one of those slogans. You know you're a ghost hunter if you can eat breakfast at any time of the day or night. Because
definitely.
True.
There have been plenty of times
we keep.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you finish a ghost hunt at 2:00 in the morning. You stop at a Denny's and you end up having breakfast.
Yeah. Although it might be your dinner.
Well, we have to give a shout out to Cable Guy Matt's wife, Drive Through Dion, because she works the Tim Hortons drive through in my community, and I'll tell you, she makes a solid ice cap, very solid ice cap.
What's an ice cap?
Didn't you have one when you were up here? I thought I brought you one.
I don't know.
It was like the.
I don't know. I don't think so.
It was like the coffee Slurpee.
Oh, well, it's coffee. I don't drink coffee.
Oh, that's why you chickened out. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I know what an ice cap is.
Yeah.
Right.
He's an anomaly. He's from Seattle, but he doesn't drink coffee. It's bizarre.
Yes.
My grandmother ruined it for me. Mm-hmm. Every time I go over to her house, and when you go to your grandparents' house, you want candy. And of course, the only candy she ever had was coffee candy.
Oh, those are terrible.
And it just ruined
those
me.
are terrible.
Yeah.
My grandmother on my mother's side had the traditional candy that you need a sledgehammer to break.
The hard candies. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yep. Yeah. The one that breaks teeth. Oh yeah, that was my grandmother's candy.
Yep.
And nobody knows where that shit is made.
The butterscotches of root beers.
Yeah. And nobody knows where that hard candy is made. Mm-hmm. It just shows up. It just reappears.
It's the same factory that makes fruitcakes.
Oh yeah. That's a good sign.
There you go.
Well, let's see here. We got about 90 seconds before we have to come back here and do a little bit more radio. Lon Strickler's in the chat room, everybody tuned on in. Little disappointed that Lon shaved his beard and mustache. I hope it's growing back. Joshua up in Fort McMurray. I bought an ice cap today. It was crap in thick wood Fort McMurray. I always get chocolate milk in it. Oh, you can't put chocolate milk in it. That ruins it. Oh, hi, Melinda Leslie. How are you? Look at all the stars coming on in. Erica M. did have a massive nose, Bart L. Not as big as Hazel May's head. We're talking Canadian television stars here. Mm-hmm. By the way, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Ashley McIsaac. He's very famous up here in Canada for his Celtic fiddling. I chatted with him for about an hour on Saturday. He actually got his cousin got a picture of a UFO over his stage while he was playing. It was kind of cool.
Wow. Recently?
It happened in 2016. I'll get you guys the photo. Hold on here. We're coming back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Hi, Grendel. Hi, little Mo, or whatever your name is. Nicole Sackich. How are you? Here we go, everyone. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you because this is what I love to do, and I hope you loved listening to this show. I want to remind all of you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. David Weatherly and Ross Allison are here tonight talking everything paranormal. And the one thing that we always know about Ross Allison is he's always wearing a skull. There is always something on his clothing that has a skull. So, Ross, before I go take this any further, I need to know, where's the skull on your clothing tonight?
My skull is on my T-shirt.
Nice. Very nice. Good call. Good call.
You got a safe answer.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I thought it'd be going a little further, but apparently it wasn't.
I'm even covered when I'm naked, so I'm good. I got skulls everywhere.
Excellent. Excellent. Gentlemen, I want to ask you, and Ross, we'll start with you since you were so kind to tell us where the skull is. You know, haunted churches, you guys have done a lot with this haunted series, but it's when you always seem to mention, not you guys, but in general, when a church is mentioned when it comes to the paranormal, it always adds a little bit of creep factor to that. Why did you guys decide to go with haunted churches in this series?
Well, the biggest thing is, as we started putting the series together, we did want to put together subject matters that hadn't been talked about a lot. Like David had said earlier, you really want to draw in your readers and give them some new material. And yeah, like we've talked about, we'll cover a lot of the mainstream locations, but we also wanted to, put together some subject matters that hadn't been talked about, and churches really have not been talked about. And a lot of that very well could be, it's still kind of a taboo kind of subject matter when you bring religion and ghosts together. That was a big topic that we covered in the beginning of the book, is ghosts in the Bible and that thin line that you cross when you bring up that subject matter. Because, even as we were putting together, haunted churches, there was a lot of times when you'd go to reach out to this church and say, hey, I think, you may have a ghost, and they'll flat out hang up on you. You just don't bring up that subject matter. And then every so often there's a few churches that are just very open about it. So for us, we did haunted churches just because it was an interesting subject matter that has not been talked about.
Mm-hmm. David, what made you go down this route?
Oh, it was one of the topics we came up with, and when we were brainstorming different potentials for the series, and like Ross said, we're trying to hit areas that no one has ever done. There really aren't any books on some of these topics that we're starting to cover. So haunted churches is a pretty fascinating one to both of us, because when we started talking about the topic, we, just off the top of our heads, both knew a few different legends of different haunted churches. And we're like, yeah, this is something that would be cool to examine. And again, when most people think churches, they don't think about ghosts. They might think about the Holy Ghost, but they don't typically think about, I got to head down to church for services. I hope that ghost doesn't come out and bug me when I'm sitting in the pew or something. So it's kind of a interesting topic to delve into, because then you have the additional aspect of how religious belief plays into this. And, we didn't go real in depth with that, because that would take volumes to cover, honestly. But we touched on it in the first part of the book, and, it's really inherent in the stories in a lot of ways, which I think, again, goes back to that component of folklore and traditional ghost story that I was talking about earlier. So we had fun doing this one.
Well, I got to ask, Dave, while I have you on here, when it comes to the paranormal and churches, which is synonymous, obviously, with religions, there's a little bit of taboo that goes along with that, because, dealing with the paranormal, even though a lot of things that the church does seems to be paranormal, in dealing with spirits and everything along those lines, the church gives kind of a frowned upon opinion regarding hunting for ghosts and connecting with the deceased. Yet here you are doing this book. Is there irony there, or is there just a little bit of uncomfortableness doing that?
It wasn't uncomfortable for me.
Me either.
There's definitely a lot of irony there, and I think, if I'm honest, that's probably one of the things that attracted us to do it. But at the same time, there's kind of a fascination in a way, because most of these places you can't really investigate very well. Active churches, most of them aren't going to let you come in and do, a full-fledged investigation. Some of them, are historic. There's a few that are closed down, and, you can do minor stuff. Some of them have, of course, haunted graveyards attached to them. But, for the most part, these are places that have some pretty fascinating ghost stories, and at the same time, they're difficult to really get in and validate in any way that's in terms of an investigation, of a physical investigation involving equipment and everything. So there's something kind of interesting about that, I think, because, we have a very strong tradition in a lot of these locations for their ghost story, but it's, is it just that? Is it just a story, or is it a tradition, just a kind of a piece of lore that's left over from something? Or is there really something much more to it? And, there's some of these places, even when we were doing the research, and Ross and I have been to a lot of these locations, but, some of them I thought about when I was writing it. I was like, man, I'd love to get back in there and do an investigation, a full-fledged investigation.
Yeah, and like I said too, you'll find a lot of them will poo-poo the idea of letting any ghost hunters come in, but then every so often you do get some of these church leaders that are open to it. Maybe they're curious themselves. Yeah, and so it's kind of a nice opportunity to investigate a haunted church.
Guys, I'm going to tell you, it creeps me out. I don't know why. But the whole idea of investigating for ghosts, I mean, it sounds so logical. I'm not going to say that it doesn't sound logical, because it totally does, but it just creeps me out. It's like there's certain things that shouldn't be done there. You shouldn't hold hands with your girlfriend. You shouldn't kiss, someone in church. You shouldn't go looking for ghosts, and just in case Beelzebub is hanging around the next corner. I mean, I don't know. I just find this creepy.
Well, for me, it's, I think it was just a fascinating topic, just to find somebody who is a priest or a nun that is more than happy to share their ghost stories. It just goes to prove that there is something out there, especially when you're dealing with the Bible that tells you that ghosts don't exist, even though the Bible does contradict itself, because, you know, when Jesus rose and was seen walking along the water, of course, his disciples were like, oh my God, is that a ghost? And it clearly said that in the Bible, so they knew what a ghost was. And then, you know, here you got people that the religion fact that they'll tell you that no, ghosts don't exist, and if we are experiencing anything paranormal, it's obviously demons, and I say them, you know, in quotes. But it's kind of nice when you get that validation from somebody who is very well trained in the religion, and yet they're still open-minded enough to say, yes, there is something odd happening here. We don't know what it is. Check it out.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, Dave, if you're trying to get us to sympathize with you, I mean, we're not the guys that are going to find anything like this creepy. You know, if somebody's telling us it's creepy, we're more apt to make an effort to go there. So, you know, you're in the wrong ballpark with that. But yeah, like Ross is saying, it's kind of fascinating in a lot of different ways, because on the other, from another perspective, you know, in the modern age, there's so much fascination about the paranormal and ghost stories and everything. And, you know, you've got so many people who are practicing a religious tradition, at least they say they are, while they're ghost hunting. And in a sense, that is a contradiction, because so many of these different faiths, and it depends on what offshoot you're dealing with, but they do view these things as, oh, if it's a ghost, it's got to be demonic. You know, it's got to be of the devil. It's got to be, you know, something else evil. But, you know, there are so many people in the paranormal field who try very hard to bring a religious component into it. And there's kind of an irony in that they don't always see the contradiction that they're creating for themselves, I think. And I'm not, you know, necessarily saying it's a wrong thing that they're doing. I'm just saying that, you know, if they're going to be a strong whatever, fill in the blank, you know, then they should really have a good foundation and understand what their faith believes about what they're doing while they're participating in paranormal investigations.
Did you guys...
What always gets me, though, what always gets me is the fact that they claim to be a scientific organization, and yet they claim everything is demons. You can't be scientific if you're going to bring religion into it, because then already you're being biased in your research.
Are you talking about the church?
Well, I'm just talking about how you were talking about investigators. I'm just talking about how you brought up ghost hunters will sit there and use religion for their, you know, investigations, but they also claim to be scientific. And if you're being scientific, you can't be religious, because you can't be biased in your research. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to go down the demon road, believe me.
Love it.
We'll be here all night.
I love it.
We still have a couple of hours.
Oh, yeah. You know, but
no, it's really valid points, though. And I mean, Ross and I have talked about this at length, and, you know, and there's not necessarily an answer to it, because when you bring that component of religion in, it does very much alter things. And it is kind of interesting to me, because I see these groups like Ross is talking about that professing that we're doing this scientifically, we're doing, you know, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, you know, they get a half hour into the investigation and they're throwing holy water around, and they're, you know, burning sage or whatever they're doing. And you think, okay, well, hold on. You know, if you're either gathering scientific data or you're approaching this from a religious aspect, it's very difficult to do. I'm not sure if you can truly balance doing both and proclaim that you're both things at the same time, because there are contradictions. And again, I'm not arguing that either course is necessarily correct, because ultimately we just don't know. You know, it's one of the mysteries of the paranormal. There are so many questions and so many things that remain.
Did either of you get any backlash whatsoever in your inquiries about this?
Oh yeah. I'm one that I know when I do my research, I like to do cold calling because, you get a lot of new stories. Because when you write about some of these places that, are well known to be haunted, a lot of times what you find on the internet is just copy and paste of one story all over the internet. And so you, as a researcher, you need more details than just, there's a woman in gray, seen, on the balcony. That's it. Okay, well, that's not a good enough ghost story. We need more information if we're going to tell the story. And so you have to sometimes call, reach out to these people, email them. And I've had the phone hung up on me a number of times. Or, you'll sit there and say, any ghost stories, and they say, no such thing as ghosts, click.
Yeah.
You get that a lot, too.
Yeah.
So rude. So rude.
It's just the reality, there's still a lot of people who are not comfortable with the topics.
Well, another thing too is, unfortunately, again, due to that popular ghost hunting, you find a lot of these groups are very disrespectful. And so when they hear a place is haunted, particularly the church, they are known to break into a lot of these places and, basically vandalize them in the rights of I'm a ghost hunter. And that's just wrong. And so they experience a lot of that. Or these youth, want to go and party in some of these places that are haunted because it's cool. And they just get tired of it. And so they just want to, cut all ties when it comes to anything paranormal. Even if they might, admit that there could be a ghost there, they just don't want to deal with the disrespectful people in the field.
And in fact, there was a story. I know the last two books and the upcoming book that's not out yet. Each time we have pulled at least one story out of the book for various reasons. Now, the current book on churches, there was one that I was researching, and and I'm not even going to name the location, and I'll tell you why. It's a historic site, but it suddenly got a reputation that it was haunted, and it has been broken into numerous times. It's been vandalized. They've had so much trouble at this location that these people are pleading to please don't. They didn't tell me this. They've put this out to multiple sources the last couple of years, of saying, please don't spread this rumor about this story, because it's not true. And we've got, a historic site we're trying to preserve, but it keeps getting vandalized. And I had dug into the story itself and found the facts. And indeed, it is not haunted. And Ross and I had a couple of discussions about this because we almost included it just to say, look, this is a bogus story. It's not haunted. It's not, don't waste your time. But I told Ross, after I thought about it, I'd written part of the account, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm not even going to include this, Ross, because they're so desperate to not have any attention on this site, that I think we'd be doing an injustice to include it. Because we will include things that are, cool stories but aren't true, and we'll specify that. We'll say, look, this is the legend, but there's nothing to support it as being fact. That the sightings aren't real. The account is not. It's false. So it's a cool story, but we have to debunk it and say, no, it looks like there's nothing really going on here.
Was it actual paranormal investigators who were ruining that place, or was it a bunch it was a bunch of teenagers who just heard the rumors and wanted to go play around at night?
Well,
I think it's both.
It was both. And the problem is that, you get these random groups that form and they decide that they're going to be ghost hunters, but for whatever reason, they don't want to pay to go rent out a well-known location or whatever. So, they look for these places that they can do just outside, whether it's an abandoned site or whatever, and they find a place like this that's remote, and they go and, they can't resist the temptation, I guess, of being out there late at night and, hey, nobody's around. It's an abandoned building. Let's go in it. Oh, the door's locked. We better force it open. Nobody will know. And, one thing leads to another. And it's a real tragedy because it makes the whole community look bad. And, you get a contingent of people who now have a perception that, ghost hunters are a bunch of, knuckleheads who just want to, break into buildings and vandalize and pretend they're getting scared.
Yeah, look at all those stories that have come out where, ghost hunters set a historic building on fire, because they decided to do a seance with candles and it caught on fire. And there's been plenty of stories out there where some of those groups have done that, and they've burned down or destroyed historic buildings.
Yeah. Crazy. What causes that? We only got about 4 minutes here. You guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have, and probably a lot longer than 99% of our audience. What causes someone in the ghost field to do that? Is it the rush? Is it just the thrill of the game? I don't understand.
I think it's the macho ego. You get a lot of these guys that, bring their girlfriends along to scare them at a haunted location. And then they got to, prove a point or prove that, they're the tough guy, and they're doing the Zach Bagans thing. Like, oh, come on, prove that you're here, and they start, busting things up. Like, oh, I just broke your chair. What are you going to do about it? You get a lot of that happening in the paranormal field.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's people looking for a thrill and a rush, and like Ross is saying, a lot of times there's ego. They're trying to impress, somebody else that's with them, and scare the girls or whatever, and they do all this nonsense, that's kind of a pseudo version of what they've seen on television, and then you get the other aspect of people who are out there, we're going to ghost hunt and we're going to try to call in a demon. So, they throw down the Ouija board and they burn a bunch of candles and they do all this nonsense. But unfortunately, a lot of the times, there are substances involved, let us say, to, that they think will help them have a better time. And, you just get a lot of reckless behavior.
Are you saying ghost hunters are on steroids? Is that what you're saying? Little Daradeka before the old ghost hunt there, David. Is that what you're doing? Hey,
oh boy.
I'm just saying. I mean, no, I understand with where you're going with that, and it's too bad because that's where the ego and that weekend warrior mentality takes over that we have been very critical about on this show in previous shows. And, I guess this is why, and I kind of wrote a blog about this last week. This is why, what I've noticed is people like you, David and Ross, you're not worried about your social media followers. You're not worried about how many Facebook friends you have. You're not worried about how many people are following you on Twitter or getting that blue verified check mark on anything. You guys are just there to work and try and hone your craft in this field, trying to figure out these mysteries while, pursuing a career in it as well. So my question to you is, how do you balance being one of the top researchers, David and Ross, and we only got about a minute here. We may have to take this over to the next hour. How do you take that with shying away from the social media aspect and the popularity that goes along with that?
I'll let David go first. Seniority there.
That's not why I do it. So there's really nothing, personally, there's nothing for me to shy away from. I love what I do, and, I'll keep writing books as long as I can. I could care less whether I, have X number of followers somewhere or whatever. And, I think it goes back to ego, like Ross is talking about. So many of these people, they want the attention. They need to get attention. They need to be on television. They need to, have people retweeting them or whatever. And that's just not my focus, man.
All right, Ross, I'm going to get your answer. I'm going to get your answer when we come back, because I think it's important for the audience to hear that you know, it's about the work. This is a job for you guys. It's not about fun. It's not about, you know, weekend warrior type stuff. You guys do this on a daily basis. This is what you've made your career around. Ross Allison, David Weatherly, EerieLights.com is where you can find their brand new book in their haunted series called Haunted Churches. More with Ross and David coming up on Spaced Out Radio in Hour 2. Sorry about that, Ross.
Oh, no, that's fine. I kind of figured it would probably get cut off, so it's fine.
All right. You guys can talk away. I'm going to run the dogs outside, Doug and Shadow there, and the audience on YouTube will be listening, but not listening, but listening. So I'll be right back, guys.
We've been warned, David.
Yeah, apparently. It's like having an old-fashioned party line. You don't know who's listening, you know.
I know. I was going to say, how is Vegas going? Is the strip open?
I'm not there at the moment, but no, mostly it's closed. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff shut down there. So,
where are you now?
Seattle quieted down any?
Seattle's, it's still quiet. Everything. The riots have calmed down. You know, it's just it's crazy.
Yeah, but Portland's bad.
Yeah,
Portland's really
I know
bad.
when they cleared out Seattle, it was in shambles. That's for sure.
Have you been down
before? There? I haven't been down since we had to move out of our spot. Okay. So it's just it's kind of heartbreaking, you know, to think about it, and then. When we were heading out of there, you know, this was right at the beginning of all this. It just Pioneer Square was already, you know, being taken over by the homeless people. The trash everywhere. So it was just sad to see the historic part, you know, just being destroyed. So I don't think.
Do you think you'll be able to open your tours back up again at all?
Well, we'll be able to open up tours. We might have to open up and, you know, spread out the tours and do it in different locations, not just focused on Pioneer Square anymore. I think we might move because when I first started the tours, I had a tour on the waterfront, I had a tour on Capitol Hill. Yeah. So I think I might open those back up and just kind of offer some other opportunities for people coming into town. But, you know, we don't even know what tourism is going to be like after this. You know,
right?
It's just it's scary. It's sad. It's, you know, it's tough. It really is.
When you guys won't be able to open for Halloween, will you?
Don't know. From what we've been told, we cannot open until phase 4. We're still in phase 2.
Oh, geez.
So, you know, right now, you know, well, the sad thing is even, you know, hopefully we can do something around Halloween, but it doesn't seem like it with the rate things are going. Numbers are still keep going up. So, you know, if the numbers are going up, of course, it's not going to open any doors for anybody. So, but, you know, the problem is, you know, summer's now, you know, that was our height season, summer and fall. You know, that would help us bring in money to, you know, keep the business running, you know, through the winter.
Right.
And so if we don't have that money, then, you know, it's going to be worse in the winter.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, like,
yeah, and I mean,
you too.
Halloween, of course, is the big time, you know, so.
And for both of us, I know.
Everything's canceling, man. Everything. I just got word today that my, the conference I was doing in September just canceled. And that was, you know, it was a pretty big one. It's one of the only ones left that they thought they were still going to have, but it hasn't been announced yet, but they're going to announce it the next day or two. So it's not happening. So yeah,
I don't know how we're going to recover from all this.
Yeah,
this is, you know, I don't want to say poor me because I know it affects everybody. Everybody's, you know, and it's hard. But you know, you think, how are you going to make it through yourself?
Yeah, I know.
I guess, if I want to go flip burgers, or stock shelves, that might have to be option B.
Hey, hey, Ross, is your museum okay down there?
No, it was closed.
Really? Eh?
We lost the location, so yeah.
Is that all caught up in all that crap going on down there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where your location is.
Everything. Oh, we were in the heart of Pioneer Square.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Son of a gun.
So,
yeah, he's shut down. That's what we were just talking about, actually.
Oh, man, my heart's broken for you, man. Sorry to hear that.
Thanks. I keep thinking, there's always something better, but then, to be honest, if I look at the silver lining, this happened just before the COVID strike. And if we had been in that spot during all this, we'd still be having to pay rent.
Right.
So I guess that's the silver lining. We'd be continuing to go further and further into debt because, we're not making any money doing tours.
Right. Yeah, you didn't know that, actually, Dave. They lost the lease on their location really right before all the COVID stuff started. So you guys moved out it was March, right, Ross?
Right, just 2 weeks after they announced it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
But they had already given you notice, and you were done. So, yeah, that is a silver lining. I mean, because they would have been locked in and not able to pay the rent. So those people kind of screwed themselves by booting you guys out.
Yep.
What did they want to put some? They want to put some fashionable coffee shop in there, or what?
No, just somebody else put in a higher bid for rent that we couldn't afford.
Right.
An outrageous amount. So.
Right. That's
what can you do?
Nothing you can do.
And their excuses. That's just business,
Yeah. Gentlemen, hold on. We're going to start hour 2. We're going to start hour 2 here. I apologize.
You're listening to Spaced Out
Music
Radio
is on.
with Dave Scott.
131 people on our YouTube right now. Make sure you hit that like button, thumbs up or thumbs down, and the subscribe button as well. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Aphetic. Aphetic is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with authors, researchers, probably the best investigators in North America when it comes to the paranormal, David Weatherly and Ross Allison. These are two of the finest gentlemen you will meet in this field, and we're glad to have them here. Their website, eerielights.com, and their latest book that they've combined on in their haunted series, we're talking about it tonight, Haunted Churches. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Always good to be here.
Love having you.
Just a quick plug. eerielights.com is my website. Ross has his own website also for is a ghost organization and also for Spooks in Seattle. And I think is it spooksinseattle.com, Ross?
That is correct. And it's ghost.org.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that. I always get schooled. Always get schooled by these guys, and I love it.
Oh, you were fine. You were fine.
Love it. Anyways, gentlemen, we were talking about haunted churches. I have to ask, was there any denomination of religion that was more open to the paranormal with this book than others?
God, I don't know. I think it was just a little bit of everything, to be honest. It really depends on the pastor, the priest, that you talk to, or whoever was in charge. Sometimes you can get very hardcore Catholic faith where, there's no such thing as ghosts, but every once in a while there'll be a Catholic priest that'll say, yeah, I've experienced some weird stuff, not sure what it is. And, they're willing to share their stories. So it's been a little bit of everything, to be honest.
How about for you, David? Did you notice a difference?
Not too much. So, it really comes down to the individual, because over the years, if I think back on it, I mean, I've known some people who were Catholic who were very open, in terms of talking about ghosts and hauntings and things like that. And then, of course, the polar opposite, no, that's the devil. I don't want to hear about it. And, the same with some of the other various Christian traditions.
That surprises me. I thought that there wouldn't be much opening for this.
I think it comes from their own personal experiences. If you practice a certain religion and your religion tells you there's no such thing as ghosts, you probably will believe that unless you have an experience yourself. And then it's usually those experiences that you start to question things, even question religion.
But at the same time, on the flip side of that, I think that, you do have people who have personal experiences. So they might be a devout Catholic, but they know for a fact, they saw the spirit of their grandmother, and they know that wasn't a devil. So, you do have those personal experiences that creep in. And then you also have, I have found people that have practiced a religion maybe for a lot of years and have sort of, how can I put this? I'll say it this way, that they've transcended the barriers of maybe the official guideline on how their tradition views those things. So, I've had some fascinating conversations with Catholic priests who, officially the church says this and this and this, but they have spent so much time in prayer and in, pursuing spirit, so to speak, that they have experienced things that they can say, oh, no, well, I haven't necessarily seen a ghost, but I believe that it's possible. So, again, it comes down to the person's personal background, their experiences, and their viewpoints. And that's like any other, profession in life.
I do have to ask, gentlemen, with on the back cover of Haunted Churches, there's a picture of both of you in a church. Was that the one taken in Barkerville?
It was indeed.
That is.
Yeah.
I figured that. I'm like, there's a BC connection here. I recognize that picture. So I'm like, okay, that's got to be that. Very cool. Barkerville, British Columbia, for people who don't know, is literally a museum town. And a couple of years ago when Ross and David were up here and I showed them the town, we got to tour a bunch of the buildings that most people aren't allowed to tour. And you guys snuck off and grabbed that picture. Good stuff.
David is always surprising me with what pictures he's going to choose for the back of the book. And I just always hope I look decent. But he's been pretty good at picking out things that are themed with what the subject is of the book.
I think it's perfect.
So now we have to figure out, is there a picture of us together at a haunted hotel?
Oh, there's bound to be.
Okay, so let's hear a couple of stories from this book and tell our audience, this is definitely a series they want to hop into. But, when you were doing this, what were you looking for, Ross?
Well, for me, I always am looking for a little more unusual stories. I like the challenge of trying to find places that hadn't been talked about as much. I also like to talk about places that I've had the opportunity to investigate myself, so I can validate, is this place, possibly haunted? And one of my stories and experiences actually comes from Lovejoy Methodist Church out in Buffalo, New York. And I came across that place just by accident. I was actually out in New York getting ready to do a lecture, and unfortunately they just canceled my lecture just before I got there because of the COVID thing. And so this was the beginning of all this before all the colleges and everything had closed up. And so I had already, paid to go out to New York to do my lecture. And then the day before my lecture, they canceled. So I had this little mini road trip throughout New York. And so I found myself in Buffalo, New York. And I was just trying to figure out something to do. I had a friend of mine, Nick, with me. And he found out that there was this church that actually operates as a museum now. It's a local museum, and we decided to go check it out. So, like the cold calling, I actually just went and knocked on the door, and they let me in, and I told them, I was a ghost hunter. They were very much into the paranormal because the church, unfortunately, had closed itself back in 1948, I believe. Now, this is a church that was built in 1883, closes in 1948, and then it reopens in 1956 as a funeral home. So their ties with the church had already been broken. So it operates for a funeral home, and then back in August of 2000, it's donated to the local community and becomes a museum for them. And so I, went in. I'd heard that, there had been some, television shows there. I think Ghost Hunters filmed there. And so they were all excited to talk about their ghosts. And so I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so they gave me a tour. And then they invited me to come back later that night and do an investigation. And so I was really excited about this. And so we had the church. We were downstairs in the basement. And in this area, they had dug out past the foundation wall because apparently they had a psychic come through, and a psychic told them that there was possibly a body on the other side of this wall. And so they decided to dig it up and see if they can find the body. No body was found. But they did claim that there was some interesting phenomena happening in that area. So me and Nick, we go down into the basement, and he, is checking out the bigger part of the basement. I decided to wander into that, that part that they had cut out. And I'm standing in this tiny little space that has been dug out, and I'm doing a little EVP session. And I can hear Nick walking around, in the other part of the basement. And then there's this loud noise. And I was like, oh, is that you? What was that? And Nick doesn't respond. So I call out again, was that you? Still no response. But I can hear him walking. I can hear him shuffling his feet as he's walking. So maybe he's not hearing me, or maybe he thinks I'm still doing my little EVP session. So he's just being quiet, like, we're trained to do. So I step out of that little cubby space, and I look into the basement, the full basement, and there's nobody down there. And that walking noise completely stopped. So for me, that was a pretty interesting experience at a church, or former church.
My goodness. The spirits that you find in a lot of these churches, are they peaceful, Ross?
Oh, yeah. Most of the stories that we wrote about were very peaceful encounters. In fact, that was one of the things that me and David had talked about. It was interesting that a lot of people wanted to make them very demonic. And as we did our research, there was nothing supporting the fact that these spirits were demonic. I think it's people just trying to tell a better ghost story, or try to, convince everybody that, what haunts churches are demons. And that wasn't the case for a lot of these stories that we were writing about.
So what kind of ghosts were you guys running into? Were you running into former reverends and priests that were, just so filled with love of being in front of a congregation that they decided to stay?
Well, I know for me, one of the stories that I uncovered, which was pretty interesting, it was a church in New York. I forget the name. I apologize. But it's in the book. But it was a church where apparently back in the day, early 1900s, a gentleman, custodian, had gone in to clean up the place, and his body was found murdered in the tower area. And they basically what they had found as they were tracing back where his body was drug up the stairs, they saw bloody handprints on the walls. And one of the bloody handprints actually was missing a finger. And so this is how they were able to identify who the killer was. And so his killer, I should say, was not ever tried. And so the spirit of the custodian is known to be seen and still wandering around the church. And I think maybe due to the fact that no one ever, captured his murderer. The guy who actually did the murder, he actually was captured for another murder, and that's what he was convicted for. And again, he actually was missing that finger. And so I think that's one good reason why somebody could easily be haunted on location. So he was identified as an example.
Oh, goodness. Denali in our chat room says, I've never been in a church that didn't have spirits or ghosts. David, did you notice that too?
Oh, sure. I mean, a lot of these locations, especially the older churches, they're kind of a magnet in a sense, because you have to consider it. Certainly when you're looking at churches from the early days of this country, you've got, a building that is a vital part of the community. It's a gathering place. I mean, they were often used not just for church services, but for town meetings, for political purposes, for any number of things. And, because of that, you have such a rich history attached to some of these places that over the years, imagine how many people felt like that was as vital or maybe even more important to them than their own homes. So if they're going to hang around in the afterlife and pick the spot that gave them the most comfort, a lot of times the church is going to be the spot.
Do you have a story from haunted churches, David, that really stands out for you?
Oh, I've got a good one for you. And it's not necessarily peaceful like Ross was talking about, but it's kind of interesting because one of my favorites actually is St. Paul's Church in Key West, Florida. Now, Key West is a place that's always fascinated me anyway. It's sort of a paranormal hotspot. There's so many crazy stories. When you go down there, you hardly know what to investigate first. I mean, it's the home of Robert the Doll. Hemingway's ghost is purported to be down there. There's so many cool stories and just weird stories associated with the place. And the haunted church, St. Paul's in Key West, kind of fits right into that pattern because it doesn't just have one ghost, it has several. And the legends about this church, it starts in the 1830s. Church was built. The original church was built of coral. So it didn't last very long. It only lasted 10 years or so. And they built another one, which was taken out by a hurricane. And then they built another one. So this is all on the same site. So they built a church in the early 1900s. But in the 1920s, a hurricane came through. And it devastated the area, and it hit the church. The church was still standing, but it did some pretty significant damage to the church's graveyard. So much so that after the storm settled and residents came out into the neighborhood to start surveying the damage, they discovered bodies everywhere. These bodies had been uncovered from the floodwaters, and some of them had washed out to sea, but others were all over the community. They were in yards, they were in trees, there were bodies everywhere and remnants of coffins and so forth. So, you get this site that has all of this kind of disruptive, disturbing activity, and shortly after that, the ghost stories begin to crop up. And as I said, there are quite a few ghost stories associated with it. There's the spirit of an old sea captain that's been seen numerous times around the church. There's a figure that they call the angry man who shows up, and it's believed that he was a historical figure who actually helped repel pirates from the region of Key West they were in during the time. So it's not really, people aren't really sure why he's so angry. It's kind of assumed that he's angry that his body hasn't been found. It was maybe lost during the hurricane or something. But the most curious legend that's associated with this church, and this is where the creep factor comes in, is that there are the ghosts of children there.
Oh, no.
And we all know any time the ghost of children gets thrown into a situation, it does a couple of things. It creeps some people out, and it greatly disturbs other people. Now, the legend about this group of children, it really kind of reads like, in some ways it reads like, okay, somebody made this story up. And I dug really hard and tried to find some facts about the account, and it's just very difficult to do because the dates are kind of vague, but the story is that a minister at the church found out that his wife was having an affair. And he was furious because he learned that she was having an affair with one of the deacons of the church. So he goes to the church when she's inside, and he sets the building on fire. He traps his wife inside where she dies. However, what he presumably did not know is that there were also 5 children inside at the time, and they also lost their lives. So this story has been attached to this church for a very long time. There are people that have reported seeing the spirits of these children in the graveyard. In particular, they're often seen near a large statue that's in the churchyard of an angel. Now, what's really kind of fascinating about this, Dave, is that there was an incident where a ghost tour was doing their nightly walk, and they were telling ghost stories at St. Paul's. The guide was carrying one of the kerosene lanterns that some tourists carry, and he had set it down in order to recount some of the ghost stories. Now, a half dozen more people in the audience this particular night all started to tell this tour guide, please pick your lantern up and move it, because a whole group of these people saw a small group of children huddling down around the statue of this angel, acting as if they were afraid of the kerosene lamp. Now, this story is pretty fascinating to me because now you have a group of people that has witnessed a manifestation of some kind, and they didn't know the story at the time, but it fits the pattern of the traditional tale that these kids are afraid of fire because of how they lost their lives. So it's a pretty fascinating. It's a tragic story, but at the same time, it's kind of a fascinating place. And as we were talking about earlier, it's kind of the church itself seems to be kind of a magnet for paranormal activity because there are just so many accounts there, and that's just a couple of significant ones.
Wow. I couldn't imagine going through a church that had children haunting it from a horrific death like that. That is just creepy.
Yeah, and you do come across a lot of those. Yeah.
I guess that's, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a parent or something along those lines, but every time something happens where children get involved like that, it bothers me on a way higher level than just trying to get some ghostly information. Does it bother you, Ross?
Oh, definitely. It's sad, reading about these stories of children that haunt, because it's such a young and innocent life, when they, die, for no apparent reason, or, from an illness or even murder. it's sad to realize that this young life has been extinguished, and yet they're still around, playing around, having fun, maybe not even aware that they have passed on. So there's that innocence that is lost, that I think is kind of sad.
It is, totally. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. This show is flying on by. Two of the best paranormal investigators in North America and probably the world, Ross Allison, David Weatherly, their brand new book, Haunted Churches. We continue with Ross and David talking about hauntings right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Flying on by.
I know.
I'm all for a minute, guys.
All right.
I don't know how it goes so fast sometimes.
Well, you get a lot of fun topics to talk about. I think that helps.
Yeah, true. So are you going to be okay? I'm still a little emotionally scarred from what you said at the last break with your business and everything.
I want to say yes, survive. It just, when your career was, the only money I made was by doing tours and lecturing. I don't make money ghost hunting, and you don't make a living off of writing books. I do it just for the pure enjoyment of doing those things. But the fact that, my money making, schemes of ghost tours and lectures have basically been, stopped. And so now you got to figure out, well, how are you going to make some money now?
Yeah, no kidding.
That was part of my career.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's tough.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help you out, man, please feel free to ask.
Oh no, you're good. I think it helps. Doing shows like this. Getting word out about the books. Because the books do help us. Make a little bit of money. But like I said, we do it because we enjoy doing the research and telling the stories. Because the stories are forever once it's published, and that's the whole reason why I write books. Is because I found so many times that a lot of these groups that started up and they go and investigate this amazing place, and they'd actually have some interesting experiences. When the group decides to fold, those stories are gone. Those experiences are gone. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, somebody said, if you write it, it's forever. Or if you publish it, it's forever. And that just kind of stuck to me. It's like, you're right. So I made it my personal goal just to try and publish as, many of these ghost stories that we can, so that they are forever, so that, generations and generations can go back and look at some of these stories and maybe have their own personal experiences to compare to something that has actually been published.
Yeah. So. I wish I had more time to write. I'm still pissed off that I haven't finished my book. I got 2 books underway, and I haven't finished either of them. And it's not for a lack of anything. It's time right now. Right? I'm more busy than...
Well, you should have plenty of time now with COVID, you should have plenty of time now.
No, I'm working. I'm working, man. I'm working.
And that's awesome. You should be lucky that you're one of the few that, get to, for yourself. But, for me, I just, I love to just do the research, I love to write the books, and I guess I've found myself, and I do have to say, to address your point, it does take a certain mindset to write a book. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm going to write a book and think that you can do it, but it does take a lot of patience and a lot of devoted time to sit down and write the story. Because the hardest part in writing a story is, how is your story going to begin? Mm-hmm. That is my biggest challenge. I know all the information. I know my start, my middle, and my ending part of the story, but those first couple sentences are always the hardest part in writing a story. How is your story going to start?
Won't you, Ross?
What's that?
I said you'll have the next couple of books done this week, right?
That's my biggest problem too, is because it usually will take me all day to write a story. I'm sure like David could, write off a couple stories in a couple hours. For me, I'm just
surprised.
like, oh my God, I go down the rabbit hole so many times.
I'm surprised David hasn't started and finished a brand new book in the time we've had him on the air right now, to be honest. Hey, Dave.
Oh, he's been the man.
Hey, Dave, quick question for you, if you don't mind. How many chapters should my book be? I'm on chapter 7.
You can't judge it that way, man. You just have to.
Yeah, you can't.
You have to get to get everything in there that you feel like belongs in there. Don't get hung up on how many chapters or how many, this or that. I mean, you set out to tell what you need to tell. Whether it's a personal account or if you're chronicling, a set of stories or whatever it is.
Right.
It does help to have an outline of your book.
Yeah,
so at least you have a certain path that you want to go down. But yeah, like David says, don't set yourself to have a certain amount of chapters, because then you're going to find yourself putting in a lot of, I hate to say it, bullshit in the book just to reach your goal.
True.
True.
Yeah, the same thing happens with word count. Is that a lot of people, they'll have in their heads, I have to have 50,000 words. So, they'll do these sentences and then the next time I thought about it, and you just hear you rambling sentences.
Sorry, Dave.
That's all
Dave. We're just about to come back here. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I asked too difficult a question right off too little time here. Halfway point of Spaced Out Radio is now underway as we've surpassed that. Dave Scott here, hanging out with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Mighty SOR. Want to remind you that all of our archives are free, so you can check them on out at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I ask for in return is hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Tonight we are talking with authors, researchers, and two really good guys, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, their new book, Haunted Churches. What do you think about that, people? Haunted churches. Isn't that just something eerie? Oh man, I think Freddy Krueger for some reason just scares the daylights out of me. But you can find him on Amazon and of course on eerielights.com, Ross's website, spookedinseattle.com, and aghost.com, and any other .com that they have I'm unfamiliar with. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
Always good to be here.
Oh, no problem. We like having you here. You're like family. Family, I tell you. All right, gentlemen.
Family that you only see on the holidays.
True. Well, twice a month or once every 2 months for Dave. That's when he puts up with my tolerant silly questions. First question David Weatherly asks every time he's about to come on the air: are we talking black-eyed children? I'm tired of black-eyed children. I'm teasing. But yeah, anyways, and Dave, I've already had questions about that tonight. I'm just deflecting them. Just to let you know. I am deflecting them. All right, haunted churches. When you guys were looking for churches to talk about these hauntings and these spirits, were you looking for those 17, 18, early 1900s churches, or were you looking for any church in general that had some sort of paranormal activity?
Well, for me, it's just... Well, go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Ross. Go ahead.
No, you go. No, you go. No, I was going to say, for me, it was just anything that had a good story to tell. It didn't matter how old the building was. Just unfortunately, with most of these stories, they were old buildings.
Because the older the buildings, the older the churches, that just seems to play to the part. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just, it goes with any ghost story. It's just, they always want to, or they always suspect that any old building has got to be haunted, or anything that looks like it's run down, it's got to be haunted, or if a tragic event happened in there, it's got to be haunted. But that's not always the case. You can find brand new buildings can have ghost stories as well. And that applies to churches.
Wow. David, your opinion?
Yeah, no, I agree with Ross. I mean, it just depends on a number of things. It doesn't have to be a really old building, although that's frequently fits the archetype or the stereotype or whatever. But, there are plenty of more modern buildings that have strange stories attached to them. Granted, I will say that most of the churches we cover in the book do have some historical foundation, because it frequently it's just the more fascinating of the stories. And sometimes, the legends that are attached to these churches, they don't always go back to the site's history. Sometimes they're more recent. But I think that, in any ghost story, when you bring in a lot of historical components that sort of support it, if you will, it hits a different level of interest, I believe, for people. So just by their very nature, the more historical accounts, I think, are fascinating.
Did a lot of these churches have cemeteries tied to them?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's the key word, though. It's not cemetery. It's actually graveyard.
Yeah. It's a graveyard.
Churchyard. Cemetery is actually what stands alone. A graveyard would be attached to a church. Not to correct you, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. That's why I love having you guys on, because I learned this. Believe it or not, I'm actually storing that mentally right now.
Yeah,
no,
in
I
common
give a
usage,
cemetery tour.
Yeah, in common usage, the two terms are often used interchangeably, but, more properly, they are distinct.
Okay. So did these graveyards have any spiritual connection to the paranormal, to the churches?
I have to say that in a handful of my stories that I put in the book, when you were writing about the ghosts inside the church, it led to ghost stories in the graveyard as well. So you had quite a few stories that had both of those elements to tell.
Yeah, and then you have the flip side where you have, a historic church, and there are a lot of ghosts associated with it that seem to appear in the graveyard, even though they are attached specifically to the church. The St. Paul's Church in Key West that I spoke about last half hour is a prime example of that, because the church and the graveyard are they're sort of one. The ghosts are usually seen in the graveyard itself, but the components of the story are very attached to the church, to the building itself.
Does that include a lot of apparitions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wow. Now, these churches that you were going into, are they still used as churches for church functions, services, sermons, funerals, weddings?
Some of them are.
Yeah, I think most of the churches that we did write about are still active churches. There are maybe 10% that were started out as a church and became something else, a community center, or like the one that I talked about earlier, that became a local museum. So there are a few cases of that. But yeah.
What about inanimate objects? Gnome Squatch in our chat room is asking, how are inanimate objects haunted? Did you find a lot of haunted objects within these churches?
I don't know. I don't think with my stories, I didn't think I had any.
No, I don't recall any of those either. Usually in these cases, I don't recall any right off where the spirit appeared to be attached to a specific object. Although there are a few occasions where in some of the churches, an apparition will be known to manifest at a specific location, for instance, in the church. There's a church in St. John's Church, St. John's Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C. And it's a really cool historic location. I was in this church many years ago and had a person who worked at the church told me some of the legends, but the connection with that church is that there is a bell in the church that was made by Paul Revere, and there's a ghost story that is associated with the bell because it said that the bell was once used for an alarm, as an alarm bell for the neighborhood, and it said that when the bell tolls to mark the death of a notable person, that these 6 ghostly figures will appear inside the church at midnight, and they will sit in what's called the president's pew. They will sit there in silence with their arms folded, and they'll stare straight ahead to the front of the church. It's believed to be spirits that are manifesting to show respect for the deceased leader. And this church has strong associations with various political figures. Abraham Lincoln attended services there. There's a whole slew of stories about various political figures that attended the church over the years. And it's believed that the figures that appear are part of a committee that was formed in, I think it was 1816, to help serve the president at the time. So that's kind of a cool story, this legend of these ghostly robed figures that show up at the toll of a bell and manifest, because of this unique combination of things. And there's some other ghost stories associated with the church too, but that's the only one that comes to mind right off because they have a very distinct connection to the tolling of the bell. So, is it the bell itself that causes these manifestations to occur, or is it something else?
Ross, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I unfortunately, in my research for the churches, I didn't have anything that sticks out as being attached to an object. I'm thinking myself, no, but yeah, I've heard similar stories to that. But yeah.
The man with 1 million haunted objects, and you can't find a haunted object in a church. Do you understand the irony of that?
Right? No. I just gave you a bell.
I know, it was the luck of the draw. He obviously got the haunted bell,
Well, I still have 2 White Rock grape cans here for you, my friend, sitting in the studio.
All right.
We're waiting. Yeah, open your border. We'll come in. Come on.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Call down and get that border open tomorrow, Dave.
Oh, man.
It sounds like a pickup line, really.
I wish I had that pull. Well, you guys are on the way up. I'm heading south. But no, I will never forget grabbing those cans for you. We had this was at the Flight 21 crash site up here. And away from the crash site, there was a bunch of tin cans from this now defunct soda pop company called White Rock Soda, and they're kind of away from the crash site. And we actually got on a ghost box because there is no radio signals there. We actually got on a ghost box when I asked if it would be okay if I took a pair of these cans, that a spirit came across and said, okay, and yes. So that's the only reason why I have them, is because I had to get permission. I wasn't just going to take them. That's just all too weird.
Cool.
All too weird right there doing that.
Yeah.
So haunted objects. I know you guys did a book in regards to haunted objects, haunted toys. What's next on the haunted line?
It's actually done. So David doesn't have to give me dirty looks anymore, because I was a little behind in my stories. But yeah, we just finished up haunted. Oh, shush. But I just finished my part of haunted historic hotels. So, and that's of the Pacific Coast. We're going to do a series within the series that's going to cover all the different haunted historic hotels throughout the U.S. So right now, this one is of the Pacific Coast. So I just finished up that. That was a lot of fun. A lot of amazing places that we got to talk about, places that I now want to go to. There's a really cool place up in Alaska that actually, in McCarthy, Alaska, that's about as far away as you could probably get on any given road. And that's actually on a dirt road, 49 miles on a dirt road into nowhere, really off the grid. But I found this amazing historic hotel called the Ma Johnson. Yeah. And it was just like a diamond in the rough. I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I didn't know if it was haunted. I was just looking up some haunted, not even to say haunted, I was just looking up historic hotels. Because David and Heidi, who joined us on this book, I was a nice guy. I let them pick all the stories they wanted first. So, I get left with the hand-me-downs. And I was like, okay, with the list, a lot of these stories, you do the research and you got a great historic place, but you don't have a great ghost story. And so you end up having to throw away all your research and start all over again. And so I was at that point. I was just like, I was having a hard time going through all the historic places in Alaska, because we broke them all down to states, and I had to have a story for Alaska. So I just, typed in, historic hotels in Alaska, and popped up this picture, this beautiful historic building. I was just like, oh my God, please let it be haunted. Please let it be haunted. Please let it be haunted. And so again, I had to do the cold call, and I called in, and the lady who works there, Sherry, she said, yeah, we got some ghost stories. And they were so great, and talking about Anna, who haunts room 2. So I was really excited to add that story to the book.
What's funny, Ross, is that you and I haven't talked about this one. I saw that you did it, and I almost did that one. But I did, I don't know, some other places in Alaska that I had been to. So I skipped that one because I hadn't been to it. But I knew about that one. So, man, we got to make a trip up there, because that is a cool looking place.
Oh. And he gave me an invite.
Oh, hold on, guys! Yeah. I'm gonna throw a little caveat into this. If you guys drive and not fly, you have to come past my house.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're not allowed to stop.
Well, either way, they allow you to have rest stops and bathroom breaks and apparently ghost tours. So that's legal. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe you need to make a trip to Alaska. You know what book I would love for you guys to do? I would love to see a book on haunted bars.
Oh, we've talked about that one.
Haunted bars and saloons, because there is one up in the Yukon where they actually have somebody's toe in a jar, and apparently this bar.
Oh, I know about that one.
Yes, and this bar is hugely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, so gross.
Yeah, they had to replace the toe. Somebody stole the original toe, and they had to replace the toe.
No, somebody swallowed it.
Or swallowed it, yes.
In the challenge.
That's the story,
that's the challenge. Is you take.
They make a drink with it.
Yeah, they make a drink, and they put the toe in the drink, and you're supposed to drink, and somebody swallowed the toe, so they had to replace it.
How do you even get a toe?
The original toe is gone.
How do you even get a toe?
Well, apparently the guy had frostbite. And so they had to take the toe.
Man, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I know that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really weird story, but the hotel book is the next one to answer your original question of the Pacific. And as Ross was saying, this is sort of a series within a series.
Right.
We'll intersperse those. We'll do some other regions, but we're going to keep interspersing other books amidst that. And we talked about a couple of ideas for the next one after hotels. But we'll let that be a surprise for you guys. The hotel book is interesting. It's actually a bit challenging. It was a bit challenging because, there are so many hotels. Even just narrowing it down and just doing the Pacific, you've got just hundreds and hundreds of these hotels that all claim to have ghost stories. But I tell you, there's a lot of them. This is one, when I wrote my portion of this book, way, way back.
Or ways in there, too.
Way, way back. I had an initial list and then ended up eliminating several of those because there's just no substance to the story. The paranormal has become so popular that we get the other side of it in that a lot of these businesses, they have one little story and they go, oh, yes, we're haunted. The sheets get messed up in room 7 or, just something, some of them are just kind of silly. It's like, yeah, well, it doesn't sound like a ghost story there. It's just, it sounds like you've got a lazy maid or something else that's going on. So, to get the really decent ones and to intersperse it with places that a lot of people wouldn't be familiar with was kind of the challenge. I think we've got some really good ones in there, though. And that one should be out. That book should be out. We're shooting for sometime around Halloween. So, late October, early November is the current time frame.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool. Have you, Ross, are you just doing Pacific Northwest or American hotels?
Oh, for this one, it was just the Pacific Coast. So it was Alaska, Washington, in America.
Gotcha.
So sorry, we had to skip Canada.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it was
snow.
Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii was in that as well.
If you ever decide to do a good Canadian one, there is a small hotel/bar in a place called Parksville, British Columbia, on Vancouver Island, and this bar called the Rod and Gun, and that building, I believe, has been there since either the late 1800s, early 1900s, and is haunted as anything.
I was going to say around 1900. I've heard this story. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to.
That's on my list to check out.
I started my radio career 2 blocks away from that bar. So, I mean, being in radio, bars are synonymous with the career. And so I did some time there. I'm not going to lie. I did a little bit of time there. It was good fun, but the bartenders there, they're all very aware at how haunted the place is. They still have the original, when they tie the horses up right in front of the bar, they still have the original wood there where they used to tie the horses up.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very cool. Very cool. You got to check it out.
Hitching post. It's a hitching post.
Hitching post. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, the Vancouver Island is so haunted.
Bars is something we talked about, but again, kind of like the hotels, there's a lot of haunted bars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the United States alone, we would probably have to split that up some because, or just take a really broad swipe out. There are so many in every region in the country.
Right.
Still be cool though.
Yeah, it is a tough one because you find yourself again in that same situation where you get a great bar stories, but when it comes to the ghost stories, it gets pretty lame. So we may have to break it up into the regions if we do that again.
Come on, you're not lame.
Possibly.
You're not lame. You're Ross Allison. You wear a good hat. At least that's
my problem
opinion.
is I go down the rabbit hole so many times when I get involved in a story. It's like so-and-so died there when I got to research on so-and-so, and how they died. And it's just, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah, but that's fun.
It's easy to do, especially with the historic accounts, because, one of the things I find a lot is you get all of these conflicting dates or, names sometimes, you get these interchangeable names. Oh, it was John Carter. No, it was James Carter. Or it was, oh, wait, there's two of them. They're brothers. You find all these different facts that get scrambled up. And again, that's kind of one of the follies of things being posted on the internet, is that so much of it ends up as, half right, half wrong, weird jumble of, okay, this is what happened. And it's someone who read a brief version of the account and then did their own version.
Right.
It's a real mess.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because I have to take our final break of the night with you guys. David Weatherly, Ross Allison, continuing the haunted talk right here on Spaced Out Radio. You can find their latest book on Amazon and at eerielights.com. It's called Haunted Churches. Check it on out. We'll be back with David and Ross in Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio next. All right, gentlemen, I'm just going to run the dogs out. I'll be right back again. YouTube is listening. Oh, yes, they are listening.
I'm actually off for just a second, Ross.
Oh, so I'm by myself?
Yeah, you're by yourself.
Do I have to entertain these people?
Ross, just tell them about
your skull collection. Do I have to do like a song or dance or something? Skull collection. Well, I have easily about 600 skull t-shirts, so that keeps me well dressed in skulls.
Figured I'd come back and find you talking to yourself. I'm surprised.
I'd bore myself. I'd fall asleep, believe me, and put them to sleep, too. I guess I'm the only person in this group that can hold his bladder. Oh, my God. So where are you now?
An undisclosed location.
Oh, something secret.
I'll have to tell you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I was going to tell you...
doing some more research.
Cool. The guy who runs the Ma Johnson actually invited me, comped me for coming up.
Oh,
so
nice.
If you want to go, I'd be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love going up to Alaska, man. There's just some amazing places up there. And
I'd love to have.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'd love to have some more free time in Alaska because it's one of those situations. I went on a cruise, so you only have that limited time to do what you want to do. And so right. Maybe drive up or something. It'd be kind of cool. But really, I don't know if you looked into McCarthy, but it is really out in the middle of nowhere.
It's very remote, and to drive, I can tell you, people don't realize how massive Alaska is. So, even taking some time, you're talking about a lot of driving.
Right. It's a 2-hour drive on a dirt road, that I do know.
Yeah, just from just to get out to the hotel, you mean? Right.
And that's from, Chatina? Is that what it's called?
Talkeetna.
Chatina? So that is that's the closest city.
Oh, is that where it was?
And then
yeah.
So that's the closest city you have access to. And then from there, you drive 2 hours down a dirt road to a bridge. And then you have to park your car on that side of the bridge and walk across the bridge into the town because they don't allow cars in the town.
Right.
And the town itself, I think, is like 4 blocks, but they said, a lot of people come out for the hiking. You can hike on the glaciers out there. So I'd be like, yeah, I'd be open to it. I'd love to check it out. So
yeah. Yeah, it's over near Wrangell, isn't it? In the Wrangell part?
That I'm not sure.
Is it? Because actually,
2 minutes, boys.
Yeah, I think it is because it is. It's east of Anchorage, right?
Yes. So I do know the main city to fly
into
into is Anchorage.
Yeah, so I mean, we could fly into Anchorage and from there we could go over to it.
Or you can drive.
Okay.
Stop by here.
They won't let us cross the border, buddy.
Yes, they will. If you're going to Alaska,
you
they will
gotta
totally.
get that border open there.
I was told you cannot cross the border. The borders are closed.
Unless you're going to Alaska.
This is right, but they've tightened down on that because they've had so many idiots going up there and just running around to the Canadian national parks and everything else that apparently they've really tightened down on border crossings. And my understanding is that it's very much become up to the discretion of the border guards, who they're letting across.
They're Canadian. As long as you don't have a gun, they'll let you through.
Yeah.
That's the way they are.
I don't know. They didn't like the look of Ross when we drove up there last time, I can tell you.
No, they were jealous of his skulls.
It's those skulls and the tattoos. That's what does it.
Yes.
They thought he was a Mexican drug dealer or something.
There was a lady. I had a lady in front of me the other day with California license plates, and taped onto the back of her trunk was this Canadian flag saying, "I live here. Don't report me."
Oh no! Wow!
Yeah,
it's really disgusting the state of.
Oh, it's horrible.
We've come to.
It's horrible.
It really is. It's horrible.
All right, gentlemen, here we go.
Yeah.
The official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
All right.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you for tuning us in. I am the guy behind the microphone, Dave Scott, and thank you to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and I lost it. Oh my goodness, I hit the wrong button and I just lost the password. There it is, Effectic. Oh, I totally got that wrong. Effectic. Effectic is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight, I introduced David Weatherly and Ross Allison. If you're unfamiliar with their work, you can check it all out at eerielights.com, aghost.com, and of course spookedinseattle.com. Their latest book that they have combined on is Haunted Churches, which can be found on Amazon. I highly suggest you get their entire Haunted series. You will be very, very impressed that you did. It's probably some of the best paranormal reading out there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to have both of you on this show.
Definitely always.
I do have to say that there are some people that are just born into their craft, and and you were just one of them. I dare say you just got such a great voice for radio.
Well, I got a face for radio, too. I'm looking at my YouTube side right now. It's not pretty, man. It is not pretty whatsoever. But thank you. I appreciate that. I just, we keep growing. And our audience keeps getting larger, and I don't know why, but I'm very thankful for it. And, the fact that people of your stature within this community that I absolutely adore and respect, that you guys choose to take the time. Every time each of you is on this show, I always feel like a young kid getting excited for Christmas, man, because I just have that much respect for everything that you guys do and the way that you guys have accepted what we do around here too. So you guys are a big part of the reason why we have success. So thank you.
Hey, well, I would say like attracts a like. So feelings mutual.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me ask you this, and this is a question that David, I've never asked you before. And trust me, I've asked you a lot of questions over the years, and it's very hard for me to find something that I've never asked you. But is there anything out there, David, that you haven't written about or investigated yet that is still on a bucket list for you?
In terms of haunted sites?
Haunted sites, Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, fairies, gnomes, whatever. Anything in the genre.
That I haven't investigated or I haven't written. There's plenty I haven't written about yet. In terms of investigation, wow, I don't, I could say I guess everybody in this field kind of has a bucket list. And some of mine, honestly, are places that are, very difficult to get to at this point. And in fact, I won't go into it yet, but one of the most famous haunted buildings in the United States is actually in the Haunted Churches book, but you can investigate it. And I'll let people puzzle over that for a few minutes. There's some other interesting locations. I mean, I'd love to go into King Tut's tomb. Oh yeah. So there's some iconic places like that around the world. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been to some pretty amazing places over the years, that a lot of people would really like to get to, the Island of the Dolls, Poveglia. I've investigated a haunted monastery in China, just some pretty incredible places. So I'm sure I could, sit down and come up with quite a list, but a lot of them, again, are places that are very difficult to get to at this point. The same is true for other areas of the field. And cryptids, I'd love to go spend some time in Mongolia and research some of their legends. Some of the more exotic stuff is just so intriguing. And there's very little written about it that, it has, I'd love to delve into some of that other stuff. So, but there's always something, That's one of the cool things about this field. I will never run out of things that I want to investigate or research.
How about for you, Ross?
No, I agree. Well, like David, I've had the opportunity to travel quite a bit around the world as well and investigate some of the most amazing places. So I'm very grateful to have those opportunities. And I think that's one of the things why me and David get along so well is because we have so much in common and we've done so many follow the same path throughout our lives. For me, there's still a lot of places out there. And as you write these books, you learn about more places that you never knew about. So you end up putting a lot of these places on your bucket list as well. I really want to do the forest in Japan, the haunted forest in Japan. I had an opportunity, but I went to Japan by myself, and the only way to get there was you had to hire a driver to take you. And, for safety reasons, I figured, it's probably not a good idea for me to go by myself and hire somebody just to drop me off in the middle of nowhere and hope that it'll come back, or maybe he won't mug me or anything like that. So I missed
that's
out
one
on that
Ross and I have
opportunity.
talked about doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that, and then there's also the forest in Romania. You know,
Yes.
interesting things about
Yeah.
that.
I'd like to go
That's
there.
high
Yeah.
on the list. Yeah.
I'd like to go
That's
there.
high on the list
So-
for me.
You know, I'm getting a little frustrated that David's still traveling and not inviting me. You know, what's up with that?
You got to grow your hair. That's what you got to do. It's the power of the hair. Gentlemen, I have a question for you Go ahead, Ross, and then I'll ask a question.
Well, I was going to say, I finally got myself a leather top hat, so maybe I am becoming David.
Nice. Mike has a question for you in our chat room here, and he's asking either one of you if you have visited the reported haunted St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in Washington State. If so, what are your impressions?
I haven't investigated it. I know of it. But it's one of those places, again, you hear a lot of these stories. And as you start to do the research, you find out that a lot of them might not be true. You know, just because a place looks creepy in churches, you know, especially old churches, they always look creepy. So I can't validate anything on that one. But it is a place that I have heard about.
David, have you heard about that one?
I've heard about it, but I have not investigated it. So, yeah, we don't have that one this time around.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That's all right. All right. Let me see what else we got here. I'm just checking. I know there's a couple questions that I've accidentally passed over. Our YouTube chat room goes really, really fast, so I'm just trying to play catch up here with stuff that I've missed. But in the meantime and in between time, you know, when you look at the places that you want to go, I mean, there's a lot on that bucket list. You mentioned Romania and Japan. How about here in North America? You know, because there's so many different areas that have not been discovered in North America, small communities that are maybe very far inland. You know, like I remember when I was a couple of years ago when I was speaking at a conference in northern Washington State, I took the long way around instead of taking the short route. And I'll tell you, there were so many little communities that we passed. You're passing buildings and you're like, oh yeah, that's haunted. That's got to be haunted. There's got to be ghosts there. You know, you know, how many of those ghost stories do you think we are missing, Ross?
Oh, a lot of them. You know, I'm the same way. I do a lot of these road trips, and you drive through these, you know, tiny little towns. You know, it's basically if you blink, you missed it type of thing. And you'll see amazing historic buildings. And a lot of times you don't always get the chance to stop. But as I was saying earlier, when you write these books, and me and David are always, you know, we try to apply some of our personal experiences if we've been there to validate these places. Or, you know, sometimes we'll uncover new places in a lot of these, you know, small towns. Like, you know, I was talking about the Maude Johnson. That was a place that, you know, I didn't know about. David obviously knew of it, but it's just this, you know, little gem that I was just like, wow, hopefully it's haunted, and it was, and now it's on my bucket list. I definitely want to get out there. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot of places that in these small communities, word doesn't always get out that their local haunts are there. We, as investigators and researchers, have to do the digging to find out. And in some cases, it's going to have to rely on a certain subject matter that we're writing about to hopefully get us to find some of these places. For me, when I do searches, you know, if we're doing a search, a topic on churches, you know, if you just typed up churches, you know, you'd be overwhelmed with churches. So you have to, you know, put in, okay, haunted churches, and then you'll start to narrow down your research. But, you know, if you looked up, you know, schools, it would be the same thing. But if you look up haunted schools, you'd find a smaller amount. But even under that subject line, you're not always going to find every haunted school in America. So sometimes it's just looking for a particular stories, interesting historical value that some of these schools might have. And you think, okay, let's take a gamble and give them a call, and maybe they may have some ghost stories. And that's how I find a lot of these places. But yeah, there's so many places out there. I don't even think I'll be able to reach them all in my lifetime. So I may have to haunt a few of these places just to experience them.
That is very cool. All right. Melinda is asking, Melinda Leslie, I know you guys know who she is. She is asking.
Oh, hey, Melinda.
She is asking, what is the best EVP that either of you recorded in a church?
Oh, in a church. Oh, I got a good one. I was investigating, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of the church. This was just being at the right place at the right time. I was in London, and of course, doing the touristy thing, we came across this really old medieval church. And the guy who was watching the church, he was a volunteer. I just happened to, ask the question, well, is it haunted? And again, right place, right time, right person to talk to. He told me some ghost stories and some experiences he had. So I actually was able to convince him to let us stay after closing and hang out and do a ghost hunt. And he was really cool about this. We stayed till about, I think, midnight and did this ghost hunt in this medieval church. And the EVP that we captured in there is this chanting in the background. You can hear this old, monks chanting in the background. And so for me, that's a pretty good one that I captured in a church.
How about for you, Dave?
I had a pretty cool one. This is quite a few years ago. This is not in the book, and unfortunately, I can't reveal the location, but I'll say it was a small chapel and had connections to the Civil War. And it was a rare situation where I was able to be in there after hours. The caretaker had let me be in there. He was in there also. And I tried a few EVPs. And because of the background of the church, I just tried a number of different things. And I said, should we say a prayer? And I said, leaving pauses between each of these statements. And I said, should we say a prayer? And I paused for a moment. And then I started off, I said, Our Father. And I paused for a few moments, and then I continued. But the EVP I captured was right after I said, Our Father. Very clearly on the EVP, I got a voice that said, Who art in heaven. So, that was pretty cool because it was so clear, and it was a Class A EVP. And, considering some of the other stories that were associated with the place, it was particularly interesting.
That is just weird. That is finishing the Lord's Prayer for you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get scared? I know Ross does. But David, do you ever get scared anymore?
Wait. I feel like I have to justify myself in that situation, okay? I really don't get scared. It's very rare. But now I'm finding myself that you two have now witnessed a very unusual situation.
I don't know.
Hey, David, do you get scared?
Nah.
Have you ever been startled and screamed?
No, not.
I don't think he's pulled a Ross.
Not really. I've talked about this before. I mean, what I get worried about during the investigation, I don't get worried about the spirits. I get worried about the freaking humans that, do so many nasty things, and you just never know what you're going to encounter. Especially, the place, some of the places that Ross and I tread into, whether it's, the two of us or whether we're doing it solo or whatever. I mean, the world is kind of a dangerous place. And a lot of times, you find these amazing places that you can research, but they're sometimes dangerous because of the human element. So, that is
or environment
concerning at the very least. Yeah, or in the environment. So, at the very least, it's quite concerning sometimes that, you don't know what you might encounter. So, yeah, and to give Ross some credit, I tell you, that's the only time I've seen him scared like that. But that was a very strange night in that location. It really was. It's so many bizarre things happened that evening that it's just, all of us are still kind of scratching our heads about that investigation, and we don't really have time to go in and recount that tonight. But it's at an infamous haunted location in Ohio called the Blair House, and very strange set of circumstances. Anyway, normally this guy is very composed, and usually if I'm on an investigation, whether it's with people I know or whether other groups or whatnot, and there's been plenty of occasions that people have come running out of a room screaming, and I'm telling them to get out of the way so I can get in there because I want to see, okay, let's see if we can validate, what'd you see? I want to see if it's still there or what, what the situation is.
We've only got about...
For me,
go ahead, Ross. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's just to justify my situation here. I really do hardly ever am fazed by being in a lot of these places, but there have been, I'll be honest, a couple times where I get startled, and and I'll jump. Something will happen, door slams, or something, cameras fly off the tripod. Things like that will startle me. But yeah, I can go into any place, no matter how dark and scary that place is, and not be afraid.
Yeah, and being startled is a different thing. I mean, the very situations that we put ourselves in often, create those circumstances that, the possibilities are created. And if something suddenly goes flying off a table or whatnot, then you're startled, rightly so, because like, wait, hold on, what's going on? But, we're not running away like some of the cartoon investigators on television. So,
Right. Gentlemen, we've only got about 3 minutes to go here with you before we have to go and say goodnight. And it's always a fast show when you guys are on, because there's just so much info, so much intel. With everything going on in the world right now with COVID and everything that is happening that's kind of disrupting what our normal patterns are, how do you continue to investigate? What do you do in order to stay busy, Ross?
Well, for me, it has been a challenge. It was a situation where we definitely had to sit it out for a while. My team had to take a break and wait till things started to slowly open back up. And then once that did, we had to come up with new protocols. We're going to go in with smaller teams. Everybody has to wear a mask. Everybody has to keep that social distancing. But, in all aspects, it's actually a plus, because the smaller teams, the less, the more control you have of the environment. So for me, it ended up being a better thing, but it's still a situation where it's still hard to get into a lot of these places. So we're still waiting for things to open up a little bit more, but we are getting out there.
Right. How about for you, David?
Yeah, I've done some solo stuff, but mainly I've been writing and polishing off some various projects and just kind of waiting this out, because I tell you, it's been very disheartening. I know Ross and I were speaking on the phone yesterday, I think it was, and it's very disheartening times in terms of what you can do and can't do, and all these crazy rules and regulations and everything. And for people like us who are very, very social and very used to being able to travel, whether it's local or whether it's to another country, it's a very difficult adjustment. I'll say that. So, I simply shifted gears and tried to, spend my time with, like I said, writing and doing some solitary things that I needed to catch up on. And of course, there's always a silver lining. You get time with family and you kind of you kind of think about the people that are important to you and everything. So, there's that. I think we're all just hoping for the best, that this comes to a conclusion this year and we get back to some level of normalcy come the new year.
That's awesome, gentlemen.
Keeping fingers crossed.
Yeah, no kidding. Gentlemen, as always, I want to say it was an absolute pleasure to have both of you on Spaced Out Radio once again. It's something that I always treasure when you guys are on, and I know our audience does too. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Dave.
Always a pleasure. That's David Weatherly and Ross Allison, their latest book, Haunted Churches. It can be found on Amazon, and you can go to eerielights.com and find it there. That's David's website. Ross has a pair of websites, aghost.com and spookedinseattle.com, as well. As we always enjoy having Ross and David on the show. David will be scheduled back for the month of October. When, we don't know. We'll figure that one out. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. More Spaced Out Radio coming up. Good job, gentlemen. Let's give you a little clap there. It's kind of cool because when I do this on my YouTube chat, everybody now will place clapping GIFs on there, memes or whatever the hell. Emojis. That's what the word I'm looking for. So
Emojis.
There you go. There you go.
I really appreciate it, guys, and I really appreciate both of you very much. And thank you so much for coming back on.
Yeah, thanks for having us
we
on.
We appreciate you too.
All right, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
I'll let you guys go get some sleep or do whatever you feel. David will be up. He'll probably, by the time I finish the show, he'll probably have another 2 books already written. So
I've got a book. I've got a book I got to finish. So yeah.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Get back to it.
All right, boys. Take care. Thank you so much.
All right.
See you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I tell you, Ross and David, I have to say this. They are 2 of the biggest mentors I have in this field. Hey, the Ronald Penton has showed up a little bit late, but he's still here for the party. All right. David was wearing the hat in the photo, and Ross was standing further in the background. Answers that mystery for you there, Corrence, the booking guy. But seriously, if you guys want to learn how to really investigate the paranormal, follow what David and Ross do. They are, in my opinion, and I know I'm biased, okay, but they are, in my opinion, 2 of the very few people who are actually investigating properly. Okay, there isn't any games with what they're doing. It's not about going for the scare factor or whatever it is. It's literally about trying to find answers. And this is what I love about them. Right? This is what I love about them. And this is why, to me, they are the rock stars of this field. And that's what we need to have a little bit more of. We really do. Let me see here. Let's go here. Oh, we're doing that one. Definitely doing that one. Mm-hmm. Definitely doing that one, Shirky Poo. Well, let's see here. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that'll do another good one right there. We'll do this one. There we go. That's a good story. Make sure these are unmuted. That way we don't get in trouble. No doing to trouble. Did I miss any? Yeah, there we go. We're good. Nope. Probably need one more. Oh, where did Shirky Poo go? Shirky Poo. We got like 90 seconds here. Right to the top here. Where was that one? There we go. Put that one here. That'll be our filler one right there, just in case. I know you guys can't see it, but it's good. 717 playbacks so far. 112 people in here. 1,700 or 717 playbacks. Average watch time is 25 minutes, 8 seconds. So 717 people actually tuned us in for this one. That's kind of cool. All right, let's get ready to do this. Hopefully they all hit that subscribe button. Paradise City, Cat Chaser. It's the only way you can be taken home. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire, the back end of every show where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the absolutely incredible. Why is it incredible? Because allegedly there was a UFO seen in Congo. A lot of people saw this thing, but guess what? It's not a UFO. The truth may be out there, but it isn't in the jungle of the Democratic Republic of Congo. No, what was mistaken for a UFO after it wound up in the dense jungle in the African nation turned out to be an internet balloon from Loon, a subsidiary of Alphabet. Yeah. Footage of the balloon was shared to Twitter showing a silver-colored object with what appears to be solar panels. A number of people are in the video inspecting the craft that was said to be an unidentified flying object. I'm not able to say exactly what kind of device I observed, said Basule, governor of Valentine Senga. He says, what intrigues us is that neither the intelligence services nor the local aviation authorities claim to have any information on the overflight of the Congolese airspace by this craft. Senga also told the media that 2 people were detained by police who were intent to search for the device. I can confirm that Loon executed a controlled landing of one of our stratospheric balloons in this region. A Loon spokesperson says this landing was done in a safe and secure manner after coordinating with local air traffic control officials. This landing was specifically approved by the Civil Aviation Authority. Loon's landing procedures, a parachute deployed, and the balloon was brought to the ground at a relatively low speed in an isolated area. The spokesperson continued, at no time did it pose a risk to the local population. A loon recovery team is already on site to collect the balloon and components. Loon is a network of stratospheric balloons designed to help bring internet connectivity to rural and remote communities worldwide. It's not the first time a loon balloon has been mistaken for a UFO. In 2012, a balloon went rogue, and residents in Pike County, Kentucky, identified the object as a UAP. However, it wasn't until a year later that Google took credit for the incident. Oh, leading people on. Now, if you're American trying to get through the border, be careful. Be careful. Make sure you're heading to Alaska. An American tourist who violated Canada's coronavirus travel restrictions at least twice now to sneak a visit to Banff National Park is now facing a 6-figure fine and up to 6 months in jail. John Pennington of Walton, Kentucky, was traveling from Alaska to the continental U.S. when he stopped at the luxurious Rimrock Resort Hotel inside Banff National Park, a gorgeous mountain escape that's currently off limits to Americans. Hotel staff noticed Pennington was in violation of Canada's Quarantine Act and seemingly taking advantage of something that's become known as the Alaska loophole. Canada closed its southern border on March 21st. They will reevaluate again on September 21st, with an exception for travelers making their way to and from Alaska. Travelers going between the continental U.S. and Alaska are required to take the most direct routes and prohibited from passing through national parks and stopping at tourist sites. They must be made identifiable by their U.S. license plate and by hanging tags in their rearview mirror indicating the date by which they must depart Canada. The vast majority of Americans in vehicles with American license plates are people who are here for legitimate reasons, a Royal Canadian Mounted Police Sergeant stated. Pennington is among about a dozen Americans who Canada and Canadian officials say were not. Police initially issued Pennington a $900 ticket, so about $7 American, and ordered him to remain at his hotel, where some rooms feature stunning mountain views. That was until he left the following day. On his way out, Pennington was spotted at a popular tourist spot on Sulphur Mountain, not far from the hotel. Pennington told police he was looking for food, but the officers didn't buy that, as the Rimrock Resort Hotel is home to several restaurants and a grab-and-go cafe. Pennington was arrested and is scheduled to appear in Canadian court in November. So far, he is the only American who has been arrested for violating Canada's quarantine laws. Speaking of not quarantining, just about 4.5 hours south of me, in a place called Revelstoke, by the way, gorgeous area, lots of haunted areas around there too. You just can't make this stuff up. A bear, a big black bear, decided to walk into the liquor store. Yeah, Claudio Brunetti says he can laugh about it now, but what happened this past Monday was no joke at the time. He says this bear came barreling down the street. I don't know why, but right down into the end of the block and in front of my pub, said Brunetti, owner of, fittingly enough, Grizzly Sports Bar and Grill and the Last Call liquor store. And then he just bolted right into the store. The door was open. I have it open because of COVID, so you don't have to touch the door. Video footage shows the black bear rumbling around down the sidewalk before he decides to make a sharp right to go get some booze. The boozing bear looked like it was intentionally shopping for spirits or a six-pack. Yeah. Then he did a stroll down an aisle. Yeah, I guess the wine section just wasn't enough for this guy. Yeah, Brunetti said, adding that a customer from Europe at the counter freaked out because he was just feet away from the animal. The animal showed no intention of hurting anybody, but he wanted his booze, and it was a big black bear, about 250 pounds. Asked if he'll come up with any jokes, Brunetti laughed, I didn't ID him. I couldn't serve him. There's all kinds of jokes going on. It's not common, he added, but wildlife do appear on the streets of Revelstoke, especially during the fall. On a more serious note, hundreds of bears are killed every year as a result of interaction with people. The province's Bear Smart community program has many tips on how to avoid bear-human conflicts. By the way, the bear did steal a bag of potato chips. He left the booze alone. Oh, Tesla. Police in North Carolina have filed charges against a driver whose Tesla crashed into a police car. Yeah, apparently the driver admitted to officers that he had activated the autopilot technology on his Tesla Model S and was watching a movie on his phone at the time of the crash. A Nash County deputy and a trooper with the highway patrol were on the side of the road while responding to a previous crash when the Tesla slammed into the deputy's cruiser. The impact sent the deputy's cruiser into the trooper's vehicle, which pushed the trooper and the deputy to the ground. Thankfully, no one was hurt. The driver was charged with violation of the state's move over law and with having television on in the car. It's an important reminder that no car on the market today is fully self-driving. Drivers need to pay attention to the road at all times, regardless of what kind of car they have or what kind of driver's assisted technology their car says it has. In the last year, there have been at least 3 similar incidents involving Tesla vehicles crashing into police cars. Happened in Arizona in July, in Connecticut and Massachusetts last December. To be fair, this isn't just a Tesla problem. Studies have found that driver assistance systems like autopilot from Tesla and other makers are not good at stopping for stationary vehicles. A study earlier this month found that driver assistance programs from BMW, Kia, and Subaru failed to consistently stop for stationary vehicles on a test truck and a test track. Still, Tesla clearly has a room for improvement. Obviously, it would be good if autopilot could actually detect stopped vehicles, but Tesla could also use better driver monitoring technology. Tesla vehicles use a steering wheel torque sensor to try and detect whether a driver is paying attention. This kind of sensor is easy to defeat. It also possibly is there to help keep a hand on one wheel without actually paying attention on the road. Tesla could learn from Cadillac, whose Super Cruise technology includes an eye tracking camera that verifies that the driver is actually looking at the road. Oh, that's interesting. Here's a scary story. On the long drive from Florida to Alabama to join the search for her missing brother, Jim Capello, nurse Jamie Wiest, kept thinking back to something he told her only a week earlier. 2 siblings were talking on the phone discussing his strained 8-year marriage to Nikki Capello, the mother of his 4-year-old daughter. He told me that if he is ever found dead, it's because Nikki did it, Wiest says. She sort of shrugged it off because I didn't think he was serious. You just would never think that you could be so close to someone who would be capable of doing something like that. As Jamie and her husband pulled into Jim's Huntsville home on September 22nd, 2018, they arrived to the site of yellow police tape. My heart sunk. I was nauseous, we said. I prayed and prayed and prayed so hard that perhaps maybe somehow in some miraculous way it wasn't him. The problem was he was dead. After showing up with a search warrant a day after Nikki allegedly refused to let them search their garage, police recovered the body of Jim, a self-employed private detective who had been investigating his wife's suspected drug abuse. Nikki allegedly poisoned him using insulin she obtained from her work as a nurse at the local hospital. On the day they found Jim's corpse, police also discovered a partially dug hole in the couple's backyard. She's giving nurses a bad name. No kidding. I don't want to be taken care of by this lady. Anyways, we take care of people. We hold their hands during their last breath. People die in our arms, and we take that to heart. How she was able to do this to a healthy individual she loved? I have no idea. Oh, that's just scary. Absolutely scary. So she's facing life in prison now. And Wiest, who now has 3 kids of her own, is taking care of the couple's little girl and plans to seek full custody of her niece after the criminal trial concludes. According to Wiest, Jim's investigation into his wife's alleged drug use was driven solely by his love for his daughter. He didn't want her under Nikki's care, not if she was abusing drugs. Oh, that's a sad story. Sad, sad story. All right. From sad to freaky, dramatic footage has been captured from the U.S. Coast Guard. Watching them open fire on an 8-foot shark when it swam into the mists of the crew's swim time in the Pacific. See, this is exactly what you're not supposed to do. Middle of the Pacific Ocean, you don't go for a swim, okay? Mako sharks, thrasher sharks, bull sharks, great white sharks, megalodon, you just don't do it. When are people going to listen to Dave? When are you going to listen to Dave? Look, sharks are cool, okay? We shouldn't kill them, all right? But if we're swimming in their territory, we're food, man. We're food. All right. Maritime Enforcement Specialist First Class Cintron, designated shark watcher on board the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Kimball, fired shots at a long-fin mako when it was spotted closing in on the 40 crew members enjoying a swim in the ocean. All crew members, as well as a huge inflatable unicorn, escaped unscathed following the surprise encounter with the sea predator. The story was regaled in a post on the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Kimball Facebook page, where the lucky crew says they will be retelling this story for years. They're blowing the shark up. Oh, at least the unicorn is safe. Oh, yeah, sure. Video footage emerged of the close encounter with the deadly predator, revealing the terrifying moment the shark was spotted making a beeline for crew members enjoying a dip. The footage begins with shots being fired into the water at the shark as shipmates just feet away frantically swim in the opposite direction. The shark turned away from its prey briefly, but then turned back again, making its way towards the crew members. "It's going that way. It's going that way," one voice said, and heard shouting as a dark shadow is seen beneath the surface. "It's heading for the bow," they said, as it nears the small board station as a part of the tried and tested safety protocol. "It's turning back, and a couple of people are now shouting." Cintron opens fire again to keep the shark from its shipmates as it veers into the direction of the group of the water. Voices can be heard yelling, "Move, move, move." Yeah, this just doesn't work out well. Just doesn't work out well. Yeah, I don't think the shark is going to be happy after this, after taking a few bullets. The footage then hones in on the shark, which is still swimming close by the boat, where the crew were just swimming moments earlier. The shark decides to get out of the water and say, "Hey, guys, what the hell are you doing? I'm trying to get a meal here. You guys are shooting at me. What's going on?" No, you can't do that. You can't do that at all. Anyways, the close shave with the predator occurred when crew members organized a swim call as a treat after a hard day of work aboard of the cutter. The weather was perfect. There were no other ships around, and the cutter was stationed a zillion miles from land. See, that whole line there, a zillion miles from land. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. Okay? Them sharks are hungry. Anyways, let's see what happened here to the shark. A small boat with an extra crew and a swimmer was stationed 50 yards away, and, a lot of the crew ended up, kind of getting out of the area. Everybody was safe. What happened to the shark here? What happened to the shark? They don't tell us. I think the shark got away. Which is good. All right. I think he flipped him the bird, said, "Get out of here, Coast Guard. You're in my territory. Don't come back or I'm eating your crew." A German police department said officers responding to a report of a possible shooting arrived at a scene to find a man had simply fallen asleep while watching a loud action movie. Yes, the police stated that they received several reports from Cologne residents who reported the sounds of gunfire. Police identified the source of the sounds, and they brought in a locksmith to open the door to the apartment from which the sounds were coming. Officers discovered no actual gunfire, just a loud action movie being played while the 34-year-old resident slept in front of his TV. Police said the man was taken to the police station but was released once officers verified his identity. And finally tonight, I will give a couple more here. What the hell? We could do this. Conservation officials in Australia announced they are seeking someone to take a full-time job living on a tropical island surrounded by the Great Barrier Reef. Oh, that sounds beautiful. Queensland Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority announced it is seeking a caretaker for the isolated tropical island, Low Isles, which is about 9 miles off the coast of Port Douglas. The caretakers live in paradise on a tropical island surrounded by the Great Barrier Reef, but maintaining an island is hard work, said Mark Reed, the authority's assistant director of Reef Conservation Actions. The position requires the winning candidate to live full-time on an island and complete the duties, which include maintaining buildings and infrastructure, including the solar power system and sewerage treatment system, liaising with tourist operators, cleaning toilets, managing weeds, groundswork, and counting bird populations. The authority is accepting applications through September 25th. That sounds awesome. Oh, this poor little guy. Animal rescuers responded to a Wales neighborhood where residents found a hedgehog wedged under a fence after apparently attempting to squeeze under a barrier. Yes, Tasha Jack and her 9-year-old son Jack first spotted the hedgehog on the street near their home, and they were out for a walk, and here's this little cute hedgehog, a little stuck. They couldn't jam him out. They didn't try any butter or bacon grease or anything like that. Nope, they called the authorities. Family went to check on the animal a little while later, found he had gotten himself into the predicament. To our surprise, we found him jammed underneath the fence. Yes, the police arrived, the SPCA arrived, and responded to the scene. Full lights on, full hedgehog emergency, as it was tightly wedged into the gap, unable to move. Yeah, Rampart. Let's call Rampart here. Oh, yeah, remember that in the 70s? McNeil, Christine McNeil, that is. Yeah, she's from the SPCA there. Made contact with the owner of the fence, who agreed to unscrew the panel over the animal so it could be pulled free. The animal was understandably very panicked after the ordeal and has been taken to a specialist care center for rehabilitation before they plan to release it back in the wild. That's nice. Finally, tonight, I hate these Guinness Book of Records. I really do. But this one is cool. This one is very cool. A Minnesota man has broke a Guinness World Record when his hair was styled into a mohawk that measured 42.5 inches high. You have no idea how jealous I am of this. Joseph Grismore said he initially attempted to break the Guinness record for the world's tallest mohawk in 2007, but his hair fell short of the needed height. Grismore's attempt for the 2021 Guinness World Record took place at a family hair affair in Park Rapids, where stylist Kay Jetman spent hours working on his hair with the help from his wife Laura and mother Kay. The stylist said it took half a can of got-to-be glued blasting hairspray to make Grismore's hair remain vertical. Therefore, he won the award. God, I want that guy's hair. It's good stuff. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What's your favorite ghost hunting story? All the paranormal people I have on my channel, I got like 3 responses. Chris, a single cop in a small Montana town, had a big St. Bernard mix that weighed almost 100 pounds, slept on the bottom of his bed with him every night, day and night. The dog passed away in the cop's home when he was 12 years old. His friends and family told him he should go to the pound for a rescue dog, but was still emotionally hesitant. About a month after his dog passed away, the cop came home after a 4 to 12 shift and went to sleep around 2 a.m. Around 6 a.m., he woke to the feeling of something weighing heavy on the bottom of his bed where his dog used to sleep. Still half asleep, he thought that to himself that the dog was sleeping, and then he remembered it passed away. Sitting up, he called the dog's name and felt weight lift from the bed as if the pet had jumped down to the floor. He said it gave him the feeling of comfort, thinking his friend was still somehow watching over him. I love that story. Thank you, Chris. I've had that happen myself. Thank you to Captain Shirk and everybody who participated in the Thought of the Day. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to David Weatherly and Ross Allison for joining us with their Paranormal Churches book, Haunted Churches. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody in our chat rooms and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You were fantastic tonight.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has parked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we'll do it again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. That's good stuff right there. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Do 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 do. Just hit me right there. Hit me. Just hit me, baby, one more time. My loneliness is killing me. Oh, who doesn't love Britney? Thanks, Jose. Appreciate you tuning on in, man. That story I read of Chris's, that totally happened to me with my dog. Totally. All right. I'll be right back while this is downloading. Are all Saskatchewan residents flat earthers? Yes. Yes, they are. Ow. Fuck. That hurt. All right. Old Davy's back. Really ripped my toe off there. That hurt. Son of a gun, that hurt. Anyways, I'll survive. I will survive. All right, let's download this. By the way, if the lovely and talented Kira is listening, happy birthday to you. I hope you had the best day ever. So let's give her a round of applause for having a birthday today. Shall we? Let's. All right. Let's find that file. Where is that file? No. 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 Yes, there it is. Yeah. Dave is okay. Dave is okay. I survived. I spent all day out in the forest today looking to get firewood. I didn't get any firewood. But my buddy Mike and I, not Merle, different Mike, him and I, we went into this one area, man, and it was creepy. It was completely creepy. And it was one of those ones where you didn't want to wander too far away from the vehicle because it was just creepy there. I don't know what it was, but it was weird. Hey, Chris GP. Thanks for coming up. Hi, birthday, Kira. Oh, it was eerily quiet. There was something big crashing through the forest. I didn't hear it because I was standing by the truck that was running. But Mike heard it. And kind of hung out there for a little bit to see if we could see anything. And then after that, we ended up going to my gifting site. And we went, excuse me, frog in my throat. And holy shit, Corey, right on. Ronald Moorhead booked for September. Oh, fuck yeah, that's a good guest. Sweet, sweet catch there, Corey. That's why we love Corin's the booking guy around here. He doesn't fuck around. He goes after him. Guy's like a pit bull on guests. It's awesome. And what the hell am I looking down for in the camera? I don't know. Oh, I was reading the text message. That's what I was doing. Anyways, so we go to the gifting site and nothing's moved. But something had walked through there and kind of there was like a branch that was shoved in between the trees, because there's no way a branch could have fallen in there like that. It was just weird. And for October, not September, October. Cool. And anyways, move that stick out. And excuse me. And nothing was moved, though, so we shifted a few things around, and we walked back out. There's no signs of anything or anything like that. We walked back out to the vehicle. We're just kind of standing around, looking around the logging road for any type of animal tracks. And right behind the vehicle, we hear, when you hit a rock together, it makes that really weird sound. I can't even do it. I'm not even going to try. But it sounded like all of a sudden a rock was like thrown at us. Now, I don't know if it was thrown at us or not, so don't quote me on that. But it sounded like a rock hitting a rock right in front of the truck. And I'm like, Mike, did you hear that? He's like, I sure did. I said, it sounded like a rock hitting a rock, correct? He's like, correct. He goes, that's exactly what I heard. And I was just going to ask you that. So I don't know if we had a rock thrown at us or not. We kind of stuck around, and I kept on saying, hey guys, like, throw another rock. Nothing ever happened. But it was kind of cool because I've never had that happen before. And just kind of weird. Kind of weird. And this weekend we're going to put another we're going to put another gifting site out at the area where Merle, myself, and Little Marky Spender were chased out of a couple of years ago. Now, I have been back to that location since and have not had any contact with anything weird there since. Okay. But I'm going to put up a gifting site there just in case. Just in case. Because I am kind of interested to see if we can get any action in there. Now, we got to find a good spot because a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a number of people do travel up to that memorial area to see the graveyard. Like last year, one of the pilot's children put a picture in the cockpit there. So got to be very careful with that to show the love and the respect for those who died on that fateful night on July 8th, 1965. So we do have to be careful, but but we want to make sure that we get something in that area just to see if we will have any type of further contact. That's for sure. Drink. Kira retracted a message. All right. Now, where is that one? There's that one. Where's the other one? There it is. That's good stuff, people. Good stuff. According to the booking guy, just keeps hitting home runs. So, Dave, what do you think orbs are? I don't know. I don't think they are just dust. Okay. I think there's something a little bit more to them, and it's just, I don't know. They're interesting. They're interesting. I don't know if I buy the whole faces inside orbs, and I'll tell you why is I think that leads to a lot of pareidolia, but for the most part, I think they're pretty cool, especially when you see them floating right in front of you. That is really cool when that happens. Move those. Let's put this one in, that one in, these two in, this one in, and this one in. Convert those. Let's go over here. Get your verification codes ready, everyone. It's verification code time once again here on Spaced Out Radio, because we always want you to be verified before we do anything too dangerous on this show. All right. Today's verification code is 877-064. 877-064. Use your verification wisely, because we want to make sure that you are verified. Oh, my hair is getting long, by the way. My hair is getting longer again. It's starting to get into my eyes again. 6 digits, Ron. I realize they're always more when you're in the Maritimes, but we need you to stick to 6 and no letters. Sandra gets it right every night. Where do you get the verification code, Susan? You just make it up and see if you can guess it. The verification code? Hey, Lil Cam. The verification code is for me to verify that I can send it through the radio show through WeTransfer to my radio stations. Hi, Tina. What do I feed my hair? I wash it every second day with them. That's what I do. I wash it every second day with conditioner. What do you do with the codes, Elaine? Nothing. Nothing. It's all for me. It's all for me. I'm greedy that way. Upload folder. Desktop. Thank you, Nikki. Have a good night. Close this program. Turn that off. Yeah, it is pretty long already so far. No. It's like the password, Elaine. What's the password for? Exactly. Sometimes we do things around here that just have absolutely no meaning. Good night, Tina. Hi, Bomber. Well, that's because you're in the prairies. No, you're in Nova Scotia. So you're like 4 hours and 2 minutes behind. Small plastic animals. Good idea, Jenny. Good idea. Maybe I will do this. That one is done. What time is it where I am? It is 12:22 a.m. Alan Holman, what kind of art? I want to know your website, Alan. I'm going to Google you. Holman art. Alan Holman paintings and artworks. I'm going to assume that's you. Let's see. This is some auction site. Is this you, Alan Holman? Oh, if that's back from January 31st, 2011. That one was sold. Oh, that is beautiful. Damn it, I would actually have a place for that one in my house. Let's find more Alan Holmans here. Hold on. Oh no, that can't be it. That can't be it. What was... Come on. Where? Okay, I gotta go back here. Art Holman? No, that's definitely not you. Alan Holman, PEI, dropped by Bank of Canada? No. Alan Holman, come on. Art. Just give me the... My site is author Alan Holman's Microcosm. I'm not a painter, I'm the writer. Oh, okay. Oh, you're in Ontario now, Bomber. Whereabouts in Ontario are you? Alan, hold on, what was that? Alan Holman. Author Alan Holman's Microcosm. Author Alan Holman's Microcosm. Oh, he's a Canadian guy who has a positive self-image. Born in 81, big 39 years old. Parts unknown, weight unknown. Check this out. Uh-oh. Alan Holman admits he's a millennial. Admits it. You know, he's the kind of guy when you're on an airplane, anybody need a doctor? We need a doctor. I'm a millennial, he'll tell us. Oh, I'm teasing, but that is funny. He's a fellow Canuck, so he could take it. We're tough that way. Boom. Done. Or sleep, so I don't have to talk. All right, everyone. Tomorrow night we have the SOR round table. We're going to bring in a bunch of voices and friends to come on in, talk about the month that was. And we will be starting at 9. Who's coming? At 9 o'clock on YouTube, as per usual. So I want to say a big thank you to all of you for coming on in. I never know how to end these things. It bugs me. Really bugs me. So I'm going to say goodnight to all of you. Thank you for tuning us in. Thank you for being as awesome as you are. We're going to do it all again tomorrow. And, drag some friends with you.